season 2 in round 2 and race 5 in the team time trial. So very strong showing from them in the team time trials. And our final team is Insured, powered by Pedal Power.
Okay, let's have a look at the women in white.
So those women, Monilee Keller, the Canadian who's been impressing over the last few weeks, had some great results. Melanie King, Morgan Shaffin, Laura Simench and Jamie Clark. And watch out for those women in white. They've had some very good results. 5th place in round 2, only 48 seconds off the win from Heino. And then in round 5, they were 6th, 1 minute and 15. So they've always been there or thereabouts knocking on the door. So it'll be interesting to see what the women in white can do tonight.
It certainly will. It's a little bit of poetry there from you, Hannah, just to wrap things up. Us into the live race, which will be with very, very shortly indeed. Remember, the teams are off at 1 minute intervals. Last year it was 30 seconds. This year there's a little bit more space between each. And I think the team I'm going to pick out for, though we won't show them on the screen just here, is the Movistar. They're currently sitting in 7th place, and I'm really interested to see how they really kind of bed in as a squad. They've got a team with big ambitions, and they've made some big signings, haven't they, as well? Beth McIver and Steph Cluttergott moving across from Cryo RDT. So they're a team with real ambition. And this is one of those courses that it's, although there's a couple of pinch points, a couple of small climbs, it's all about going as quickly as you can and getting into a rhythm, isn't it?
It is. It really favours those strong teams with a lot of horsepower, keeping that speed high with no real changes in elevation, which it really does favour those teams who can keep themselves together, keep that speed high, and just put the power down.
As I said, first team off today will be KISS Racing. Following them, Vision E Racing. Then we'll have Team Turbo. Basically, the teams will go off in reverse standings. And ATP Racing, they'll be chasing the women in white, Insured, powered by Pedal Power. Next up, Beast Mode, and then Saris and the Pros Closet. But without further ado, let's have a look at the first team out on the road. It is the KISS Racing Team, a kit that's been unchanged over the last couple of years, and one of the founding kind of members of the, remember they started off many years ago in the KISS Racing League. So a team that really know this course, and a team that are a really important part of the racing, aren't they, Hannah?
They've been an integral part of Zwift Racing and Esports in over the last few years. It's been great to see the riders that have come through that team tonight, racing Eiley Gardner, Deborah Slutz-Parker, Faye Faber, Sarah Portella and Kate Robinson. And here is a look at Kate Robinson, the 3 riders here in the group at the minute, in the formation. Slight gap between them, just need to get themselves organised, get themselves back together, and then they can really get their team time trial underway. But have been an integral part. We can just see the rider there just coming back up to the back wheel of Kate Robinson.
Yeah, they've got to be really, really careful they don't start off too quickly. There was a little bit of a gap, but it can often happen at the start until riders get that opportunity to settle back into their rhythm. 1 or 2 gaps opening. All of these riders, of course, will have had a really, really good warm-up. So important in any sort of Zwift racing, especially a team time trial, as we look at Vision. Couple of different kit options here, some aero helmets. Only 2 riders opting for the disc wheel setup here, but again, this is a very, very fast course indeed. I did ride it earlier on today just to get again, I've ridden it numerous times before, just to get a bit of a sense, but there's a couple of nasty little drags. I mean, we know there's not a super amount of elevation on this course, Anna, but all it takes is for somebody to squeeze a bit too hard on one of those drags and the gaps open up. So discipline is so important, as well as making sure as much as they can with engulfing in air that they talk to each other as well.
Definitely, and you don't need to communicate with a lot of words actually between each other because you're connected through various communication methods. It could just be hold or squeeze, or we need to press on or wait, and then the team be able to know the problem. But Vision E Racing have started to get themselves back together. We've got Sarah Story there, Charlotte Colclough, Lucy Gadd, Lizzie Duncombe, and Charlotte Parnham, who rounds out those 5 riders. So got themselves into a nice formation there. As we move on to Turbo, one of the teams that has been promoted from that community division up to the Premier Division, and a very, very solid formation here for Turbo, looking very, very good. All in one line. Rider there.
Yeah. Sorry, Hannah. No, they are looking very good. They're very, very close together. That's what you want to look at if anybody's watching this for the very first time. And you know, it's very much like on the road. It's about trying to stick as closely as you can to the rider in front of you. To minimise your effort when you've done your turn on the front, you get maximum draft the closer you get to the wheel in front. And this is a really, really good example, isn't it? A wonderful sort of back end shot, as it were, of them riding in unison. Wonderful picture in pictures, but this is real good illustration. Very early on, only 900 meters coming into their first kilometer. They've got a lovely shape and a real ideal formation so far, haven't they?
They have, and this was one of the small draggy sections that you were just alluding to a moment ago. That, you know, it's not a huge false flat section, but it can cause teams problems. But they've got over that first kilometre very well, kept themselves in this formation as they go onto this downhill section through the tunnel. Team Turbo, you can just see the riders who are on the front and how much more power and watts they have to push in comparison to those riders who are at the back. If you take a look at Gemma Felstead in comparison to Dare Taylor or Sabrina Kurtil, just shows the saving of each rider.
No, indeed. So we've got TFC here. TFC are riding very, very well. Only 3 riders at the moment for TFC. Hannah Peel, Jackie Chiampi and Dominic Eustace. Hannah Peel, the only Brit on the team, and then the rest of the team made up of a couple of Canadians. Just looking at their stats at the moment, riding is sort of like between 4 and 5 watts a kilo. And if any of you watching have pushed those sorts of numbers, you know what that feel like. This is a very, very high standard indeed. But just to pick up on your point earlier on, Hannah, these metrics, once you see the rider on the front putting out kind of 300-400 watts, and you look how much they're saving behind, it just illustrates very, very starkly, doesn't it, the real importance of sitting as closely as you can to these riders. And with TFC only having 3, they're going to have to work a fair amount harder than teams with 5 as well. So it's going to be a tough day out for them.
It's going to be very tough, and also there's not much time for recovery or respite for each of these riders, whereas a team who's fielded 5 riders as a full team, you've got so much more recovery before you have to do your next turn. And of course, we know in the team time trial, each team has to finish with 3 riders across the line. That's when the time is stopped. So for TFC, they can't afford to lose 1 rider. If a rider does start to struggle, they need to make sure that they wait for the rider to all finish together. As we move on to ATP Racing Venom, Anel Radford, Angela Roberts, Cassie Nelson, Cleo Dinan and Jennifer Santoyo. Team of 4 riders from the USA and 1 from Australia. And another team actually who started off very well and got that formation. Rider's just finished her turn, coming off towards the back.
Yeah, you can see the rider on the front there. Cleo Dinon is the rider on the front. Look at that, 350 watts, 340 watts. Anil Radford just dropped towards the back with Nelson, like 150 watts, needs 200 watts less, just showing that saving. But there's been a bit of a surge on the front here. Cleo Dinon has just opened up a little bit of daylight. She's going to want to just back off a little bit, and these riders will be communicating. The vast majority will be using WhatsApp or Discord, talking to each other. The team managers and the riders themselves just making sure that they don't surge. And this is one of those horrible little false flats, because you pick up a lot of speed, don't you, coming into that tunnel, and as you just pick up again, this actually looks like nothing, but it's actually a really nasty little drag, isn't it?
It really is. And as you say, this is where the team manager comes in, that he'll be wanting and she'll be wanting to say, we're starting to break up, just ease off, and you want to try and avoid those injections of pace or big surges. You want to make sure that you hold the pace nice and evenly and build on the speed and build on the power. Not when you come to the front, you don't want to be the rider who has that increase in pace and then starts to split things up. If you want to do a longer turn or you're starting to feel good, it's better to do a longer turn rather than a faster, shorter turn.
It is amazing. I mean, we've got Insured, powered by Pedal Power. One of the teams that you picked earlier on, just a reminder, we've got Monali Keller, Melanie King, should I say, Morgan Chaffin, Jamie Clark and Loris Simench. Again, another close formation here. They're, rather than a kind of team time trial, they're almost kind of blobbing up, but that's better than actually having gaps in the wheels. At least the riders are actually saving a little bit of energy, trying to get themselves back into a little order here. And what happens quite often, Hannah, isn't it? If the riders are bunched up really, really nicely, it's quite easy when you've actually done a turn on the front to actually overlap somebody in front. So it takes quite a lot of skill, but the more team time trialing you ride on Zwift, the more you can get into that one long line formation. Because let's be honest, the ideal formation is just one long line, rider swings off and joins the back, just like in a team pursuit or in a team time trial you'd see out in real life.
It is, but this way, doing it in esports, you need such discipline. You need, also practice. As we said before, this is our second team time trial of the season 3, but we've done lots of team time trials throughout the different seasons of ZRL. But it comes down to practice, that discipline, just knowing each rider actually as well, and knowing your teammates, knowing how much effort you need to put in. And as you can see from the flags, the country flags, these riders are in all different parts of the world, so you're effectively, that also plays a part, that the riders aren't even in the same room. They're having to do this all through feel as well, and it's just about learning that process, learning the team time trial.
Certainly is. Well, this looks like it's beast mode, just out on the road at the moment, one of the newly promoted teams. And this is our fastest starters. So basically the fastest starters, as it said, the teams that start the quickest. And at the time there, Vision E Racing, well, the time was taken after 2 kilometers on this course. So it's an additional kind of fun time check just to get a sense of the pace these teams have set out. Only 7 teams, as you can see, have passed that initial intermediate split. So Vision E Racing riding very, very well, but pretty close. Only a second. In fact, sorry, that's just been beaten by Saris and the Pros Closet. Of course, this has been done in real time. So Saris looking very, very good. That's a pretty quick time, 3.02 for the first 2K. So Saris, Hannah, started off very, very quickly indeed.
Saris has started very well, but also impressive actually. Vision E Racing, I think that's probably one of the best and most dialed starts they've had in the team time trial. Headed up with Sarah Story, who's a Paralympic champion, former world champion. She's an exceptional time trialist, very, very strong in a pursuit as well. As we look at Beast Mode powered by Rose, the team manager Sebastian Wolf, they've got Josephine Nack, Julia Schallau, Kimberly Miller and Maria Marb. So 4 German riders and a new team set up it back in December. And Sebastian Wolf was the rider who was the German sports director for the Esports World Championships. So he guided Jason Osborne, to the World Championship victory.
Indeed, and it's wonderful that they've actually kind of got 2 brand new teams. They're both called Beast Mode powered by Rose. Great kit as well, as he said, primarily a German team. But Jason Osborne looking towards the Olympic Games in rowing. Hopefully we'll see him back in that rainbow jersey very, very soon. But it's great to see that with the amount of organisation, the amount of dedication and determination here by the squad, because they really have. They've started off pretty quickly and they've got big, big ambitions, really dominating in the community divisions, and have settled in so far very, very well indeed. There's the stats, and that looks like a very, very well drilled team. Look at that almost perfect, Hannah, team time trial formation on these early stages. 4Ks under the wheels at the moment. They'll be coming up to the mall in about 3.5 kilometers time. The first intermediate split after that first split of 2Ks, the fastest starter split, comes on the mall. Then we've got Westminster after that, and then Lower Thames. Let's have a look at how Saris and the Pros Closet are doing. Again, that really brightly coloured lime kit. A little bit of a split, and this, aside from that little kick up from the Surrey lanes into the underground, the bit they're on now is probably one of the hardest climbs on the circuit, isn't it, Hannah?
I think it's one of the hardest, at least in the subway section. When you go through that tunnel and you know it's really steep, you know that you have to be full gas on the pedals to make it over, because it really is like, when coming from the Surrey lanes, it's like climbing a wall when you get to that part. But on this section, because it's almost another false flat, a draggy section, you're almost don't know how much power to put down, that you don't want to split things up, you don't want to be off the back, and it really puts yourself into a little bit of difficulty because of its length as well. So it really is such a hard section of the course to judge. But Saris and the pros closet seem to have done a good job of that. All 4 riders, 5 riders now coming back together. Nelson on the front, pushing 270 watts. And you just look at the heart rate of the riders who've just done their turn, Matt. It's very high.
Yeah,
they can now get a little bit of respite in the wheels.
Yeah, that's just that little drag that you just talked about, just as they come round with Nelson's column. They've then got a little bit of a descent following on the back from that, so it's actually hard to get the power back up again. But certainly, they're just running, they'll be heading up to the mall, just round I think this is just coming up to the back of the palace very, very shortly indeed. This is where the road rises a little bit. We haven't got the gradient, but this is probably about 1%, and you can really start to feel the bite again. But Nelson looking good here, putting a lot of power through the pedals. And this is a good performance so far by Saris and the pros closet. Still the fastest team after 2 kilometers. Look at the discrepancy there. 13 seconds, should I say, faster than Team Turbo. And look at this Movistar. Again, the team that I kind of wanted to see how they do tonight. Second at 1:58. Quicker at the moment than Heino. That's fascinating.
That's fantastic. Such a great start for a new team, a new composition of riders, although very experienced, in their previous teams that they've been in, coming together and being able to ride a team time trial like that and only just be a second and a half off the pace after 2 kilometers. Juan Pedro Molinaro, the sports director for the Esports team.
Here we go, Cryo RDT. Of course, it was Cryo RDT that lost one of their key riders. I say lost, it's kind of the nature of the beast, isn't it, really? She transferred across after those wins yesterday. She's formed a really important part of Cryo, of the Movistar team. But we're looking at Cryo at the moment, and again, a real international flavour. Tammy Miller, Louise Gamst, Megan Armitage, Harriet Gilson, and Mary Louise Hart-Krogag. So 2 riders from Denmark there, 2 Brits, and an Irish woman as well, and they're looking very good. This is a really, really tightly knit formation, and I think we can actually look at the first intermediate split times coming through in just a few moments' time. There we go. Well, Vision E-Racing at the moment, that's a superb time. Again, 10 minutes and 47 seconds. That's the first split at the mall at 7.6 Ks. ATP in second, TFC third, Turbo fourth, Kiss Racing. We've got some of the quicker teams a little bit later on, but I tell you what, Hannah, but to open up a gap of 40 seconds at such an early stage, they've gone out the blocks very, very quickly, haven't they?
Very, very quickly. But one team that I just take a look at, TFC in third, they're only 26 seconds down, and they've only got the 3 riders, let's not forget. So a strong start for them, despite only having such a small squad. Vision E-Racing, it'll be interesting to see how much they've got left in the tank for the back end of the course. But for me, that's, and as I said before, one of the best starts in the team time trial that they've had. Charlotte Coldclough, another rider who's extremely experienced, been racing for many, many years. Cryo getting that formation back together as they go onto the mall.
Yeah, this is a great little bit of formation riding by Cryo RDT. This is the they're heading up the mall. The Buckingham Palace will be to their left-hand side. They then swing back round, head back down the mall. This is about a 1.5 kind of 2% drag. Really does bite. And the other direction, of course, I think this is actually this is the parade. Actually, just coming up to the top now. They'll swing round. You can just tell the rider that's on the front at the moment is Harriet Gilson riding hard. Look at the watts difference. She's just backing off, going around this corner. I think Tammy Miller is now swinging through to the front. So important they keep that discipline. And look at that, they're just coming back together. So far, so good for the Cryo RDT. Again, another very well drilled team, should I say, Hannah. I mean, most of these riders as well today would have actually pre-ridden this course. It's a course they know, but they'd have done a little bit of a ride today just to make sure they remember all the ebbs and flows, because course knowledge is absolutely crucial on these, isn't it?
Is crucial, and I think it's a time where the riders can all speak to each other as well and say, well, this is a really important part. We need to make sure that we're together here. We need to make sure that this could be a potential option where things could split. We don't want to make sure that we have no surges here. We want to make sure we keep it all together on the climb, on the draggy sections, or coming out of the tunnel, make sure that we regroup if we have any problems. And we look at Movistar E-Team as they just see the riders in their pain caves, and just a few gaps starting to open up within that team. So they just want to try and get themselves back together. The rider at they've lost a rider as well after 6.6 kilometers of racing. So they've obviously they've gone out hard, and we saw that from their opening time. After 2 kilometers, we saw how quick they'd gone out, but already losing a rider that early. Steph Clutterbuck at the back.
Yeah, certainly not an ideal situation for them. But I think it's Anna Delana that they've actually lost at the moment. But we'll get confirmation of that. Just a look at Becky Story on at the front. Beth McIver, sorry, on the front. Of course, Beth McIver and Steph Clutterbuck both moving across to the Movistar team. Steph Clutterbuck, a marketing and communications specialist, and took a bachelor's degree in history at the University of Bath. So she knows what's going on here. Very, very strong, but also, you know, she's going to have that real, maybe kind of a sense of leadership too. But they're moving very, very quickly indeed. But unfortunate for them that they've lost that rider so early on, Hannah. But when you look at the kind of depth they've got in terms of talent, they are one of the teams that, although they'll miss that other rider, they've got that kind of real deep pool of kind of endurance. So they hopefully shouldn't lose too much time.
They certainly do, and you know, they've after the few little gaps opening up, they've regrouped, they've got themselves back together. And I did see that Imogen Cotter, the Irish rider, she suffered a training crash on the weekend, and had a few little injuries. She was had a bit of a bruised back, but good to see that she's come back strong. She's on the race, on the line, and coming back strong. Not being too affected by the crash on the weekend.
It's the last thing you want coming into a discipline like this, isn't it? We're looking at the Onion race team at the moment. Again, looking pretty good. Little bit of a gap just opening up as we head down the mall. This iconic finishing straight, one of the most iconic finishing straights in the world, of course. Ariel Verhaeren, Barbara Frisch, Simon Kirsch, Daniela Estrate. Very fast finisher indeed is the Romanian. And Ludi Adegeest. And Adegeest was very, very animated last week, wasn't she? Getting a lot of points. Very, very fast finisher indeed. As we look back now to Kiss, they're well into their racing. Portela now taking her turn at the front. Now this team, I believe, Hannah, have been passed by Vision. So Vision on an absolute flyer tonight.
Absolutely incredible ride for Vision, and that, you know, will give them such confidence that they've already caught a team who started a minute in front of them. But for Kiss Racing Team, this is a time to get themselves back together, try not to lose that composure, keep themselves together, not to kind of be too disheartened, just focus on their effort. But for Vision, E-Racing really is an impressive ride so far.
I mean, they have got such a good team, haven't they? I mean, they've still got all 5 riders, which is so important. Colclough, Parnham, Duncombe and Story. We know how strong Sarah Story is. I mean, one of the most decorated Paralympians of all time. Loves a time trial. She kind of manages the team as well, doesn't she? So, but she is such a strong campaigner. As we look back, that's still Kiss on the road. Now, that's our first real glimpse of Team Heino, sitting in 5th place on the general classification. Not what they kind of used to, but if they're the team that's going to try and pull things round, or has the ability, should I say, to pull things round, it is this squad. But they've only got 4 riders: Cecilia Hansen, Louise Huback, Alice Lethbridge and Caroline Williams. I think it's Hansen on the front at the moment, 5.7. No, sorry, they've got their other rider just moving back into the fray after suffering just off the back there. It looks like that's Melanie Moria just getting back into contact. She's the rider that we haven't got any stats from today. But they're looking pretty well drilled, but certainly making Moria really, really suffer. And Caroline Williams just towards the back as well there. Let's have a look at them all. Well, there we go. There's your answer, Hannah. They've at the first intermediate check, the women in red are where they are used to being, on top. 4 seconds ahead of Movistar. That's a superb performance by Movistar. They're not out of it yet, are they?
They're certainly not, and there's certainly you know, time and enough kilometres to come back and overhaul Heino Racing Team. We only saw Heino Racing Team in the first team time trial, the opening race in season 3. That was one of their worst results, and I think they can come back strong from that. They can go away, see where their mistakes were made, come back strong and really get that drilled and disciplined team back where they belong. They've won every team time trial up until that point.
They have indeed. Well, look who's just emerged at moving Movistar out of second place. 2024. This is very, very close. Only 3.6 seconds behind Heino Racing. That is a magnificent performance so far. We've still got a fair distance to go, but 2024 and Movistar, and then Saris in the pros closet under 10 seconds, splitting the first 4 teams after 7.6. That's probably the best ride for quite a long time for 2024. Superb stuff.
Very close, and we've seen in season 1 in the team time trials that the gaps were quite big from Heino to the other teams in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th place, and then those gaps started to really close up in season 2, and now into season 3 the time gaps are so close now. I think the teams have really come together. They know how they need to work together. Here's the first look at 2024. Just the 3 riders by the looks of it. A few gaps coming, starting to open up. We've got Paige Bolt, Kristen Kulczynski, Shayna Powless, Rachel Lieberman, Naomi de Pennington. Bolt there just sitting in the 4th place. De Pennington, the British rider, just at the back. So they've got themselves back into that formation, and a very solid line there.
There's certainly, I mean, given the times, you can see there's a lot of riders suffering, that they're pushing it to the absolute limits. You can just look at the moment, it looks like Kulczynski is on the front with Lieberman second. Kulczynski's just swung off there to Bolt, Kulczynski, Powless, Lieberman and Pennington putting in an absolute superb performance. So they'll know what the situation is on the road, and they'll be urged on to try and close that gap if they can. But it's really interesting here, what they can't do is push themselves beyond it at this stage. They really need to make sure they keep that pacing strategy. It's very, very easy, isn't it, Hannah, to get a little bit carried away, especially if 1 or 2 riders want to push it, because they need to stick together with 5 riders for as long as they can. 3rd rider, as you said before, is the one where the time is taken, but for efficiency, to get them as much recovery as they can, sticking with 5 so important for as many kilometres as is possible.
And they will see the results so far of the intermediate checks, and they'll be having that communicated to them. Nicola Cranmer will be saying that, as to what a good ride they're on tonight. But I think also it's they can't sort of be complacent and know that they're on a strong ride and ease back any, but also, as you say, go above their limits and then actually start to break and see gaps and gaps opening up in their team time trial. But it's trying to keep that efficiency of the team, keeping the speed high. And as we take our first look at Canyon Esports, Kristen Falk, Mary Wilkinson, Bexy Dew, Kirsten Pohl and Cecile Lejeune. Their sports director Reese Howell will be in their ears, and another team who have come actually quite close to the team of Heino in previous seasons. They were 3rd in round 2 in season 2, 38 seconds back in round 8. They were 2nd, 25 seconds back. So they've always been quite there or thereabouts.
Yeah, as you say, they're a very, very consistent team, unsurprisingly. Falk, Wilkinson, Dew, Pohl, Lejeune looking good at the moment, keeping that formation nice and tight. Still early days, still there. They've got around a 3rd distance done. It's rider just on the front at the moment, Scary Mary Wilkinson, 309 watching. Just see again, if you look at the stats and when you look at the discrepancy between the power they're putting out, that's because the rider on the front is having to sort of break into that wind. Let's have a current look at the classification. Canyon Esports, well, they're in 4th place, so they've now gone through that first intermediate split, and it is still Heino with that 10:32, 2024 at 3.6, then Movistar not too far behind with 4.13, then Canyon move up into 4th place at 6:02. It really is pretty evenly matched at the top there. Saris and the pros closet in 7th, only 8 seconds adrift, so pretty narrow margins earlier on in this race, but we know how well Heino, I mean, it's very rare, I think, that I've seen Heino actually relinquish a leading place when they've actually, if they lead a split, I don't think I've ever seen a team overhaul them, but today that could be a possibility.
It certainly could be a possibility. It's so close in the top of those standings. It's going to be so important, the back end of this team time trial, to make sure that you finish the team time trial with an empty tank, having got the minimum of the 3 riders across the line as tight-knit as possible. And it's going to be those pinch points, especially I'm thinking coming out of that tunnel from the subway, making sure that you don't see any gaps opening up, any breaks, but actually if there is, regrouping as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. And here we see the second time check, Vision E-Racing leading that one, and only 3 teams gone through as of yet.
Yeah, they've got a big lead as well. They're over a minute clear, so Vision still continuing to set some very, very quick times as we get our first glimpse of one of the teams that, performed exceptionally well last week, Team Swedish Zwifters. One of the hardest teams to actually say, for me anyway, but a team that really animated the racing last week. Anna Embring, Anna Svardstrom, Maria Frisk, Jessica Edqvist and Nelly Larsson looking pretty good. And a really, really good example of riding with skill and discipline here. It's so easy to open up a gap on the rider in front if you just squeeze that little bit too hard. The rider on the front at the moment, Anna Embring, out of the saddle. Look at that 6.3 watts a kilo just over the top of that little drag. I mean, very, very impressive. And that's the key here, isn't it? It's keeping that speed even, but making sure you're doing a kind of turn that keeps that kind of pace high before dropping back down the line. So when you look at your kind of power file at the end of this ride, it will just be a series of spikes and then even spiking and then even. It's a really, really interesting discipline, isn't it?
It is, and it's a real art to get right as well, and to make sure that you don't go over your limit into that red zone where you're unable to recover and come back, even though when you're in the wheels. So it really takes a real skill, a fine art to do the team time trial in esports on Zwift, as well as the outdoors as well in real life. So to really nail it down and make sure that you keeping the power on the pedals, keeping a linear power output, should we say, making sure that you're not doing the spikes in power actually too much that you're unable to recover. It's a measurable effort in a team time trial. There's not many variables, just making sure that you're not having to respond to any attacks like in a points race, but actually just focusing on your team, your riders working together. As we see the next team here is Vision E-Racing still lead by 3 seconds to Insured, powered by pedal power.
Yes, I race like a girl out on the road at the moment. Of course, they took that magnificent individual victory last week. That really was superb. But they're looking good here. But as you just said, yeah, Vision E-Racing, Insured, well, they pushed Vision E-Racing pretty close, 3.02 seconds at the second intermediate split of the day, 16.8 Ks. And we've got ATP, TFC Turbo. A lot of the other teams, they're expected to overhaul some of those teams, still yet to pass through that mark. And the final split we've got following that, that's on Lower Thames Street. That's at 24.1 Ks, and the finish comes at 31 Ks. But so far, I race like a girl, looking pretty good. But you'd imagine they'll be utilising the engine of Catherine Curie quite a lot. And that's quite normal, isn't it? You do get riders, especially on these flatter circuits, the slightly heavier riders, Hannah, on a circuit like this will be a definite advantage. So they'll actually spend a little bit longer on the front, won't they? And then on the little drags, you use the lighter riders. So you've got to make sure that you kind of really plan the way you ride it, obviously react to the way that riders feel out on the road, but generally speaking there'll be elements of the course that are suited to one rider rather than another.
It's about utilising the riders you've got on the team and to their strengths and how you can do the fastest time possible by using what you've got, and as you say, making sure that the lighter riders do those draggy sections, the steeper sections, the more heavier riders, they're doing those flatter sections, and if they're able to, doing the longer turns as well, the points on the course where it's more suited to them, so doing a longer, harder turn, depending on the fitness of the rider. Also comes down to experience. Catherine Curie, exceptionally experienced cyclist, former USA road race champion, former professional, winner of World Cups as well. So really is a formidable rider, and a rider who can actually give a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge to her teammates as well.
Yep. It's a really interesting shot there of Carly Johan. She'd done her turn on the front, Hannah, and as she just dropped to the back, she lost the wheel and had to stick out nearly 9 watts a kilo just to get back on the wheel. Really fascinating stuff. Catherine Curry here constantly above 5.5, nearly 6 watts a kilo. She's the rider on the front who's just swung off now. It's Carly Johan who moves through. That was a short turn. On these little downhill sections, sometimes the teams do just bunch up a little bit, but it's about making sure that, there we go, Curry on the front, look at that, 314 watts. And then at the back of her group, the riders putting out, on these downhill sections, you will actually have to generate a little bit more power, but when you, on the flatter sections, there's so much of a saving. But Curry now 6.1 watts a kilo. She's really putting the hurt on her team here. She might actually have to back off a little bit, but clearly one of the strongest riders amongst this mix.
She definitely is, and you just see the different riding styles of the team as well. Catherine Curry likes to be out the saddle for long periods of time, dancing on the pedals. You see Linda in the saddle pushing a huge gear there. Meredith Kessler as well, just turning the nice gear, and Carly Johan spinning a nice smaller gear. But that huge gear by Linda.
Yeah, indeed. Just see Curry just swing into the back there. There was a little bit, you can actually, depending on the kind of the part of the circuit that you're on, you often see these riders just back off, almost stop pedaling just for a second or so to allow themselves quickly to drop back down the line. Then they're back on the gas as they get back into last wheel. As we look a little bit further up the road at Vision. Again, 17 kilometres to the finish. There is Dame Sarah Story there, number 126. This really is one of their best performances. A reminder of the composition of this lineup. Sarah Story, Charlotte Colclough, Lucy Gadd, Lizzie Duncombe, another very, very experienced, strong campaigner, and Charlie Parnham here. But it is Dame Sarah Story, unsurprisingly, doing some pretty long turns on the front, along with Lizzie Duncombe. There, look at that, 312 watts. Duncombe's on at the front, and then Colclough, we've just swung off to the back there. She free-wheeled, she knocked it down to 90 watts, sprints to get back on again, but you will see a real discrepancy. So the riders here essentially all moving at the same speed, but putting out different watts, trying to stay as close to the wheel of the multiple Olympic champion as they can. But, I mean, Dame Sarah Story, so much experience, which is going to really buoy the other riders, isn't it?
Yeah, and another rider who can give so much knowledge of how to ride this team time trial, also the time trial, and how to pace your effort as well. And I think another team who week by week they've got stronger, they've come together very, very well. Charlotte Colclough there, out the saddle. Rider who just swung off towards the back. Sarah Story in that position, pushing a nice steady gear. Real fluid pedaling style there. You can just see all her national championship jerseys in the background in her pain cave. Got a fan as well to make sure that she's keeping her core body temperature as cool as possible, making sure she doesn't overheat.
Well, it looks like we're going to get a bit of a catching situation. It looks like Saris and the Pros Closet are going to catch Beast Mode powered by Rose. You can see the environment here completely different. We're into the beautiful country lanes of Surrey, going through Richmond Park. Complete contrast. They're only 6 seconds behind. So this is going to actually add a little bit of impetus, isn't it? I mean, they can't get too carried away, but to see a team out in front and almost be catching them by a minute is really going to boost the morale of the squad here, isn't it?
It is, but it's another point on the course where you need to make sure that you don't go over your limits, knowing that you're coming closer to a team in front. That actually you stick to your schedule, you stick to your plan. You don't go over that limit and actually do yourself a detrimental effect of actually breaking things up because you've kind of gone over that limit. The intensity is too high, and you've put too much of an injection of pace into it. So Saris and the Pros Closet just need to make sure that they keep to their schedule, keep to the race that they have been riding. As we go down into the subway here, onto this wooden road.
Onto the tracks, just taking us through the underground. The Zwift engineers and designers have kindly made sure that the riders don't have to ride on the train tracks. Friend to there. Tracy, I think we've actually lost one of the riders there. I think it's Megan Easler, who sadly has been dropped. You can just see this. She's still riding, of course, but has lost contact with the rest of her team. Only 8.9 kilometres to go for Saris and the Pros Closet, and they're just coming up to that really nasty little digger, Boville. They're swinging right now. There's the stationary tube train just directly in front of the riders. And this is the horrible little climb that's coming up. It is really spiteful, isn't it? It's only, I don't know, 50 meters long, but it's ever so steep. And you'll see some massive spikes in power here. Just look at this, 400 watts, 9 watts a kilo just to get over it.
Yeah, it's really exceptional. I mean, Esther Boville led the team into that one. They need to make sure that they keep together here. Huge watch as well by Christy Tracy, hitting more than 600 watts, but they've come back together very, very nicely, and it really does hit you like a wall when you go over that. And they're coming out of the subway. 3 riders are together as they're about to go over the bridge here. I guess moving ever closer to the team out in front of them. 8 kilometers remaining for Saris and the Pros Closet.
Yeah, I've only got a couple of seconds. Just heading over London Bridge now. You can just see, well, this is, sorry, Tower Bridge they're heading over now. You can just see the Gherkin over to the left-hand side. So they'll be, they are dropping Boville here. I wonder if they're going to wait up. But the thing is, what they can't, oh, she's got back on. So it looks like they have actually waited, because they're only 2 seconds behind Beast Mode, but I think they've wisely there. It's a real kind of balancing act, isn't it? If you have to wait, you obviously lose a few seconds, but that might actually help you later on. But clearly, that really nasty little climb in the railway tunnel there, it's proving quite difficult for a lot of riders. But it does look now they're back into their rhythm, Hannah, and it looks like within the next few hundred meters, as we swing back in a westerly direction, they are going to catch Beast Mode here. Beast Mode powered by Rose, of course, the newly promoted squad, and it looks like the catch, Hannah, is about to be made.
Yeah, the catch is imminent, and the effort from Esther Boville through the subway and the huge amount of power and watts that she put out, it put her into a bit of jeopardy, but she's back, she's able to recover. You can just see out the saddle there, and as the team come ever closer to the team in black out in front, Beast Mode powered by Rose, Saris and the Pros Closet really have got this one down. Tracy leading this one past the team, and the catch is made for a minute.
With the team behind, when they catch them, cannot actually get into the slipstream. As it is in the real world, they need to give that team a little bit of space. They cannot use their slipstream, but 7.1 k's to go. It's a great ride by Saris and the Pros Closet. And just a reminder, anybody who's watching, please do get involved in the comments. Tell us what you think of the Zwift Racing League, but importantly, get behind the riders. Use your Zwift companion app and give these riders a ride on as we head to I Race Like a Girl. Still Hannah with their full formation of 5 riders, but it looks as if a couple of them are starting to struggle here. That's Carly Johan just at the back of this group. Gaps starting to open up. They need to close those down. The last thing they want to do here is actually lose 2 riders, because this particular section, there's not a lot of flat in the Surrey Hills, is there? It's just gently undulating, nothing too steep, but it really does break the rhythm a little bit.
It does, and to lose 2 riders at this point in the course, there's still a long way to go. 12 kilometres until they get to the finish. Carly Johan, as you say, the rider who was just off the back, they're both coming back, and I think a wise decision for the 2 riders to actually just ease up a little bit, wait for their teammates to get back. So now we have the full formation of 5 riders back together. And as we said before about Saris and the Pros Closet, actually you lose a few seconds by waiting for your teammate. But actually in the long run, it really does pay dividends for the overall time to get yourselves back into that formation, get the speed back, make sure that the riders can recover in the wheels, and then you can really hit it out again for the final and remaining 11 kilometres. But
well, there we go.
I Race Like a Girl, just trying to see them on the standings. Heino Racing leads still, Matt.
They certainly do. It's they've pulled a second back. Team at Swedish Swifters have moved up. Well, they've moved up to 4th. Saris and the Pros Closet in 5th now. So it's still very close at the top. Heino Racing up that second intermediate split. I think Canyon, Canyon now, it's saying, well, that says the 22.46 there. But 2024 are going to be pretty happy with that. But Movistar haven't lost too much more time. So Heino Racing still moving a bit quicker, but they must be pretty nervous. 5 seconds and 8 seconds, that's definitely a time that they can bring back. But at what place are they? Have they gone into the red? Are they holding a little bit back? That's crucial, but that is very tight at the top.
Very tight, and certainly room for 2024 or Movistar to close that gap. And it really is tight. All it'll take for one of those teams actually to lose their podium spot at the minute is one rider into difficulty. They have a bad formation. They have a part on the course where they're and I'm thinking more like the subway or those draggy sections back into the finish where they start to lose each other into that red zone perhaps. But anything could go wrong. They really can't rest on their laurels, Heino Racing Team. And for 2024, having Movistar just breathing down their neck, 3 seconds in arrears. Then we have a slightly bigger gap to I Race Like a Girl, who've just moved into 4th place, 14 seconds. That pushes Swedish Zwift into 5th.
Yep, that's a good performance by I Race Like a Girl. 4 seconds quicker than Team Swedish Zwifters, 5 seconds quicker than Saris, and it's Canyon Esports that are actually dropping down, 22 seconds down on the fastest team at the moment, Heino Racing. So there's a real battle here, but still the first 10 teams spread over 45 minutes. Just shows, I think, when you compare it to Season 1 and also the first part of Season 2, Hannah, that the teams are actually slowly but surely sort of catching Heino. They've such a high benchmark, but these other teams are certainly not out of it and are determined to try and effect a change. I mean, Heino's so dominant, but this is a really exciting battle. 5.73, that's at around, well, just over half distance. We've got one more intermediate split. That comes at 24.1 kilometres before that flat run in to the finish line in the shadow of Buckingham Palace. But a good performance here by I Race Like a Girl, who importantly have all of their 5 riders back across to Team Vision. They've been setting some superb times here. This is, I think, it's going to be one of their best rides. Sarah Story, Colclough, Gadd, Duncombe and Parnham still looking very well and closely knit. They're coming into the finale here, should I say. Blimey. Sorry, Hannah, carry on.
I was just going to say, they're coming into that finish. They can see the finish line in sights there. The big orange banner across the mile, 100 metres remaining. And the Sarah Story, Colclough, Gadd, Duncombe, Parnham, as you say, posting probably one of the best rides they've had, finishing with the 4 riders, finishing strongly. And you can just see, as soon as they cross the line, freewheeling, they've left it all out on the road today. And here is a KISS Racing Team under that Flamme Rouge with the 3 riders, Kate Robinson on the front there, Sarah Portella and Deborah Sluss-Parker.
Well, the time that they've set as that we've got on one of our little data screens. We'll get that confirmed. We've got a time of 46.02 for Duncombe, Story, Parnham and Colclough. Of course, they lost one of their numbers, but it is the KISS Racing Team thundering down. It looks like they aren't going to beat the time of Vision. They've still got a fair bit to go. Remember, the road meanders round to the left-hand side, and it's an interminably long finishing straight as well. The finish almost never seems to come. Almost like a big runway here. But Portella, Parker and Robinson fighting all the way to the line. Portella hard on the front here, just under 5 watts a kilo. And thankfully for them, the finish line is now in sight. What time are they going to push home with? This has been a good performance, but a tough one when you're actually reduced in number there. Keeping that close formation. Remember, the clock stops with the 3rd rider that crosses the line. So respectable performance here by the KISS Racing Team.
Very respectable. 200 metres to go until they cross that finish line. Deborah Sluts-Parker leading the team home. Kate Robinson in her wheel and Sarah Portella just at the back there. And as they near that finish line, what time will they stop the clock on? Under the Flamme Rouge, the next team coming through is TFC with the 3 riders. Hannah Peel there at the back. Laura Payne and Turbo. You can just see the black dot just towards the top of your screen. That is Team Turbo just in front of TFC.
So this is a great ride. I think Turbo have actually taken over, haven't they? So TFC were actually flying here. Remember, they only had 3 riders, Peel, Chiampi and Dominic Eustace. As we look at Team Turbo. 5 riders strong, still remember, and these are one of the teams came up from the community division, and it's rare, isn't it? We don't see too many teams in these team time trials finishing with every single rider, so this is a superb performance. It is Gemma Felsted, Lime Mirik Madstam, Sabrina Kurtil, Laura Payne and Dare Taylor. This is a good performance. This is split number 4 now, so this is the final split at 24k on Lower Thames Street. It is at Saracen the Pros Closet, ahead of Insured, Vision, Beast Mode and ATP. Remember, we've got the fastest teams still to pass through, as it is Turbo now just about to cross the line. We'll get confirmation of their times as quickly as we can, but their time trial is over. Done and dusted as they finish across them all, and our first rider home for Team TFC. Looks like this is Eustace just crossing the line. Her teammates Chiampi and Peel not too far behind, and ATP. So we're having a flurry of teams heading into the finishing straight all at the same time here, Hannah.
Yeah, just coming across the line in a blanket finish for the team out the saddle, getting every last little bit of effort in out of those legs. Finishing with the 3 riders, and the 4th rider had done a big turn, peeled off, and knew that the job was done for the day. Into under the Flamme Rouge, Saracen the Pros Closet with the 3 riders. So they've made use of their other 2 riders. They've now lost contact, and they're going to bring it home with the 3 riders. A great looking style by the rider on the front there, looking calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah, Saracen the Pros Closet looking. Sorry, Saracen the Pros Closet. Yeah, just down to 3 riders, as you said. They got Tara Fretta, Esther Boville, and the final rider in their lineup is Courtney Nelson. So they're the 3 riders that are left, and they've dropped the other riders by quite a long way here. 5.5 watts a kilo coming into the finishing straight here for Courtney Nelson. Her heart rate up to 182 beats a minute. 45, 46 k's an hour as they thunder down the finishing straight. They set some pretty decent times earlier on, did Saris and the Pros Closet, but made all the more harder by the fact they only have 3 riders left. They're going to want this to end as quickly as they can. That finishing line, it almost seems to be like they're riding in slow motion, but they aren't. They're absolutely thundering down here. And there we have it. The Zwift Racing League finishing gantry can't come soon enough, and they cross the line. Saris and the Pros Closet, their time done and dusted, and they'll be very relieved as we look at Beast Mode.
Yeah, into the finish for Beast Mode, powered by Rose, finishing again with the 3 riders. Julia Shallow leading this one home with Josephine Noack and Maria Marb in her wheel, and another great performance from one of the teams promoted from the community division. Again, a blanket finish for the 3 riders, and the time stops. And the riders don't stop though. Next team up coming into the finish, already coming through, is Cryo RDT of Marie-Louise Hartz, Krogag, Harriet Gilson, Megan Armitage, Louise Gamst and Tammy Miller.
They're looking good, aren't they? Very good time here. That nice formation as they head in towards the finish. I believe they are all actually together. Well, saying we're all together, but it looks like there's only 4 riders there, but just trying to spread out as best as they can, trying to keep the minimal amount of gaps between them. I think they're almost going to catch one of the drop riders from Beast Mode, but the 4 riders there are now finishing. And now we have a Movistar. Well, they are down to 3 riders, McIver, Story and Clutterbuck. It's still a very, very good time with them, but they've dropped Dilla and they've dropped Imogen Cotter, so it's all about these 3 riders. They need to stay together to try and squeeze out as much as they can. Look at this Story now 6.1 watts a kilo, MacGyver 6.6. Looks like MacGyver shot right off the front there, and that final surge to the line, 8 watts a kilo she's lifted it to. We'll get confirmation of Movistar's time as soon as we can, but their riders have all now crossed the line. Good performance by them, and now it is Heino who are next up.
Yeah, Heino into the finish. Alice Lethbridge leading this one. Who back on her wheel? Caroline Williams. A few gaps surprisingly starting to open up. Have some of the riders gone into the red zone under the Flamme Rouge with just under 1,000 meters remaining, and these gaps, oh, this is not what you want to see coming into that finish. See Williams leading this one, and Lethbridge, Hansen just getting back onto the wheel, and it is Melanie Maurer the Swiss rider who has just been tailed off the back here. The 4 riders now back together as they come into this into the finish line. 51 kilometers per hour. The speed right now as they thunder down the finish line onto the mall. This team are flying. Be interesting to see what their time is. Since the last time check we saw, have they been able to maintain it, Matt?
Well, that's the big question. They were 5 seconds to the good, weren't they, at the last intermediate split we had? But Williams now heads to the front. Look at that, 6.7 watts a kilo. They've lost 1 rider. It doesn't matter now. It's all about trying to, well, ride as quickly as they can, emptying the tank, as we say. Lethbridge now rolls through. Huback keeping it nice and tight there. Hansen. Can they take this team time trial? Remember, they've passed the Ionian team. They've actually passed 2 squads out on the road, have Heino, but they crossed the line. We'll get the times as soon as we can for you. And Ionian race team not too far behind, but remember, they've been overtaken by the dominant women in red. So the Ionian race team across the line. And now a little bit further down, this is team 2024. What can they do today? Remember, they set some very, very quick time checks out on the course. Bolt, Kulczynski, Paulus, Lieberman. Can they try and pull this back in the final? They were only 4 seconds adrift, sorry, 5 seconds adrift, Hannah. What do you think? Can they do it? It's a great performance by the American squad.
Well, this is nail-biting, isn't it? What have they been able to pull back over Heino in the closing kilometres? Have they done it? Have they overhauled them? Paulus leading this one through. Kulczynski. And they'll turn the bend in a minute, take that left-hander and see the finish line in their sights. 46 kilometers per hour, so not as fast into this finish line as Heino. Few gaps starting to open up. Paulus, Kulczynski, Bolt, then Lee.
Well, here we go. 2024. Can they make this their first win in the team time trial? They are absolutely flying it down the finishing straight. 7 watts a kilo from Kristin Kulczynski. Kulczynski kind of just absolutely emptying the tank here. Her teammates struggling to stay in contact, but it looks like it's going to be a very, very solid time. Team 2024 finished 4 riders strong. The clock stops on the 3rd rider that crossed the line. Now let's take a look at Canyon. They're just rounding the top of Parliament Hill, coming back down now with 1 kilometre to go. But importantly, Hannah, they all have all of their 5 riders. Falk is there, Wilkinson, Dew, Paul and Lejeune. But crucially, they're around 25 seconds adrift. That's a lot of time for them to make up just heading into the last few Ks here.
It is, and considering the strong start that they did have at the beginning of this team time trial, they're starting to break up just ever so slightly. Bexy Dew on the front, pushing things along, and she has left a few of her teammates. Santoyo in the wheel, Falk coming across, Pole as well, Cecile Lejeune. And considering we said haven't seen very often that teams have finished with 5 riders in the team time trial, there's been a number of teams tonight who've been able to finish with all 5 riders. So really just shows how the teams are improving, how they're able to manage to keep themselves all together. As Canyon Esports, they'll take that left-hand turn. They see the finish line in their sights. They've got themselves back into formation, 46.4 kilometers per hour, and just touching over 5.6 watts per kilo for each of these riders.
Yep, absolutely flying. There is the orange finishing gantry on this beautiful day here in the city of London. They're just about to cross the line. What is the time going to be for Canyon Esports? The last couple of 100 meters now, and a great formation ride. Look at that. Almost a blanket finish for Canyon Esports. And again, we will get those times as quickly as we can. But next out on the course, and with not too far to go, our team Swedish Zwifters: Embring, Svardstrom, Frisk, Edqvist and Larsson. 4 riders left from their formation. And this looks like it's going to be a pretty decent time. But one of the squads that really animated last week. So another solid formation here by the team Swedish Zwifters, who crossed the line. Remember, the clock stops on rider number 3. But TSZ have finished their ride. As we move out to I Race Like a Girl. How many riders strong? Because this is another good ride by I Race Like a Girl. It looks as if they've only got 3 riders left. No, they've still got 4 riders left in their formation. Neath, Johan Curie and Kessler. I think Farkadze has been dropped, the Swiss rider.
They have. They got the 4 riders, but the most important thing is they have the minimum of the 3. They're going to finish strongly for this team. I Race Like a Girl. And it is Curry who is leading them down the mall into that finish. 6.2 watts per kilo for the American rider. And you can just see things start to open up, getting every last little bit of effort out of these riders as they near that 200 meters to go mark. They see the orange banner, the finish with the 3 riders just going clear now. Johan has her job is done for the day.
Well, there we go. I Race Like a Girl just crossed the line there. Good performance by them. Well, it's only, I think they are pretty much, just have a double check, and that is it. All the teams are done and dusted. We will get the times to you as soon as we can. Of course, the fastest team out on the roads, setting all those fastest time splits, were Team Heino, but it was very, very close indeed. Movistar were riding well. Team 2024 were riding exceptionally well, but all of the teams are in and home, and they're going to be absolutely exhausted. Maybe a little bit of a warm down, but no, we will, as I say, let's have a little bit of a debrief about what we saw on the road. Clearly some exceptionally fast times. Once the dust has settled, we will get the results to Hannah, to us. But Hannah, another great team time trial here. The London flat course is a tough one. It's got its own kind of dynamics, but it's all about the management of speed. And the results, I do believe, are just being posted through. So excuse us for the late arrival of the most important thing. And there we go. Well, in the end, the Heino Racing Team really did pull out at the end. First place, 42.02. That's a minute slower than they were last year. But the Movistar E team there with 42.34, tied on time. Look at that with Team 2024. Couldn't be split. Team Swedish Zwift is there in 4th with 42.42. I Race Like a Girl are next with 42.48. Then we have Saris and the Pros Closet. Cryo RDT, Canyon Esports with a 43.10. Ionian Race Team, solid by them in 9th with a 43.13. Then we have Insured, powered by Pedal Power, rounding out the top 10. So let's have a look at the last 6 teams. But what a ride by Heino. What can anybody do? In the last half of that race, they absolutely pulverized the opposition. But Vision E-Racing, after setting some quick times early on, had to settle for a 44.02. Then we have Beast Mode, ATP, Turbo, TFC, and then the KISS Racing Team. So they are the final results. But what can you say, Hannah, about the Heino Racing Team? 42.02. 32 seconds better than Movistar. 2022 tied on time, but a wonderful ride by Heino, who, with that, moved themselves back to position that we're so used to seeing them. What can anybody else do? Because it looked at about halfway that 2024 and Movistar maybe could do it, but clearly Heino just saved something for the back end.
Well, that's the most important thing, isn't it? Making sure that you've got something left in the tank for the back end of the race. And it was looking promising that maybe another team could overhaul them from those intermediate splits. It was 5 seconds for 2020, 8 seconds in arrears for Movistar. And in the end, to be able to pull out a time like that and win by 32 seconds, that really is exceptional. And then when you look further down the standings, how close it was between the other riders down to 9th place. It's exceptional. One of the best and closest team time trials I think we've seen, especially in the lower positions.
And I think a real emergence, if you don't mind me saying, the team that I kind of thought might do well today, Movistar, that's a great performance. They have got to be very, very pleased with that. Remember, a completely newly formed team, a name that we all recognise, but they quite clearly are a force to be reckoned with, as are 2024. They'll, of course, be disappointed they didn't win, but with a 3rd place, pretty much tied on time with Movistar, they're going to be pretty happy with that, aren't they?
They certainly will, and I think that sets them in good stead for the remainder of the series, of the season, and I think gives them a real confidence booster. We know they're strong in the team time trial. They always do excel in this discipline, and I think takes confidence into next week's race, Matt.
Okay, Hannah, we'll hear from you a little bit later on. Thanks very much. That was action-packed, very, very enjoyable. You go and get your feet up, grab a cup of tea and watch the men's race. Let's bring on our colleague Rasan Bahati to have his takeaways from what was a superb team time trial. I mean, Rasan, what has been your takeaways from what you saw just then?
First of all, Hannah and you, Matt, you guys did a great job commentating this event. I mean, team time trials are extremely hard. If you've done any in the past, you understand that they're just almost all out for the entire duration of the race. And so I think you learn how strong your teammates really are and sometimes how weak your teammates really are when you're doing a team time trial. But all the teams, Vision Quest, Turbo, TFC, I mean, the Pros Closet, Movistar, they all did an incredible ride. And I was truly impressed with just how Team Heino kept it together, didn't panic, just all that cohesiveness. And then it really played out in the end because you have to stay strong all the way to the finish in a team time trial. And I think Hannah touched on it earlier. It's like when you're really strong as that one individual rider that you always have in these events, that rider could sometimes just show how strong they are, move away from the team. But it's all about taking longer pulls and not hard, short pulls. And I think, they did a great job, and it was action-packed, and I enjoyed it. Matt?
I mean, just one other quick word about Movistar. That was an impressive performance. We know they've set about this league with big ambitions, but obviously they're a new squad. And as you just alluded to, Rasan, I mean, riding a team time trial, to get it right, regardless of the kind of individual strength, to get it right as a unit takes time. But to get second place in only their second team time trial at this level, that's impressive.
Absolutely. And I've done a handful of team time trials, and I've been with teams for a long time, and it just doesn't click like that. So they've definitely got something going in this discipline. Like I said, one of the most difficult disciplines in cycling. Look for them to really come out, sooner than later and be on top of the podium with just the cohesiveness and the type of riding that they're displaying right now.
Rasan, great to have your input, mate. It's lovely to have you along for the ride. We'll be seeing you a little bit later at the end of the men's race. But let's bring on Dave. Dave, I believe we're actually underway in the women's race now. So let's bring Dave back in again, Dave. That was a fantastic performance there, of course, by Heino. What are your takeaways before we head into the men's race? I think Dave's unfortunately muted. Should get that back in a moment. So sorry about that, folks. We'll get Dave tuned in as soon as we can. Are you back now, Dave? No worries, mate. Good to have you back.
Right. I had to hit the reset button there. It was so exciting. So, yeah, I agree with Rasan. Raw Watts, the name of the game out here. And I agree with you about Movistar, Matt, but how about 2024 as well? Definitely. That was really quite a ride for them and should build some confidence heading into the second half of season 3 here of the ZRL. So, yeah, extremely, extremely exciting racing out there. I'm really looking forward to what we've got coming up with the men as well. Expect a similar story. It's going to be very, very close. The top 3 teams should be within 10 seconds of each other out here.
Indeed, Dave. Well, before we actually take a look at the men's teams for the second of the team time trials for season 3, let's cast our mind back to what was a magnificent race around New York City. This was a thriller. This is week 3 of the Zwift Racing League. It is a wonderful course with a proper hilltop finish.
Look at the spearhead on the front of this group. Very, very aggressive.
Raikkonen now from the Kirkmare Racing Team. Gumbel that just took him on the line. A very interesting long-range sprint there.
Spencer Sengerbrook, the American, has hit out with authority.
Vidar Mel takes the win ahead of Hodges Foldager. Glednes is on the front for Callis Esports, 13.4. What's a kilo from the Norwegian, ripping up this New York tarmac. What an emphatic victory that was. This is a man who loves a solo effort.
We're going to start seeing riders getting dropped out the back end of this group.
We had 50 riders. It's going to be split to pieces by the time we get to the top.
Look at the pitch. Look how steep this is. They're climbing up an elevator shaft.
4% now. 300 meters to go. Turgles goes again. This man has found some amazing strength. A Thrall is there as well. Kirkmare comes through on the line. Thomas Thrall confirmed as the winner for Insured, powered by Pedal Power. A wonderful win. What a finish that was. So that was an absolutely superb race. Another thriller. New York City always delivers. Let's have a look at the top of the rankings. Let's have a little look at the impact that particular race made. Remember, there was a lot more points out on the road, so we saw a really different style of racing than we've seen before. We're looking back at the series points for the women. We should get, well, that is the total series points for the women at the moment. So actually, apologies. The series points for women now means that Heino have moved from 5th place and are now equal on first with the team Swedish Zwifters and I Race Like a Girl. So, and then team 2024. So as you can see, for the overall in the women's, it is very, very tight at the top. I don't think I've ever seen 3 teams tied for first place. So superb stuff. Then we have Movistar, great ride by then. They're up in 5th. So with Canada Esports in 6th, Ionian 7th, and the Cryo RDT in 8th, and then Saris and Beast Mode, the women's league, as we head into round 5 next week, looks like it's going to be absolutely superb. We might as well, while we're on it, have a look at page 2 for the overall in the women's. Should come to us very, very shortly indeed. No, I believe we're going to have a look at the men's overall heading into round 4 now. So superb ride from an individual perspective by Tom Thrall. It was PO Auto Ceramic Speed that took the day, and there is the situation for the series points for the men heading into today, the team time trial. PO Auto Ceramic Speed are tied on points with Canyon Esports. Canyon Esports, of course, the champions for the last couple of years, last couple of seasons, should I say. Then we have Movistar also showing in the men's there in 3rd. Kirkmare E-Racing in 4th. BZR Sports Solid, one of the promoted teams, really flying there in 5th. Callas in 6th. Insured, powered by Pedal Power, are there in 7th with 27, equal on points with BRT Mountain Fuel. Then we have Finesse Esports, and then Saris and the Pros Closet. Rounding up the top 10, let's have a little look a little bit further down. 20 teams we have. Restart Racing, 11th. Then we have Next Esports, another one of our promoted squads. Legion of Los Angeles are there in 13th. No Pins R3R E-Racing in 14th. Then we have Beast Mode, the other of our promoted squads. Then we have the World of Elite Zwifters, Zwift Warriors Cycling, Team Swedish Zwifters, Draft, and Dutch Racing. So there we go. So let's have a little look at the teams again lining up for tonight. Of course, we've got 20 teams in the men's race. And Dave, I'm looking forward to this, but pick out 3 of the teams that we really need to keep an eye on tonight.
You can never look past Canyon, Matt. It's such a strong team that's so well drilled in this discipline of the team's time trial. And you can see the captain of the squad, Lionel Viasen, brings the A team once again, Ollie Jones. Gary Mueller is a powerhouse. Spencer Segbus just rode basically 30 miles in 1 hour on a velodrome at his home in St. Louis this weekend. So he's in fuego right now. And Antoine Nopin, this team's going to be very hard to beat today. There is no doubt about it. So you're looking at a team that absolutely makes the podium, barring some bizarre technical. But PO Auto also comes with a team that, when you look at it, these riders are also evenly matched, so dedicated to this craft. They've done their homework, and on a course that they know well here at Greatest London Flat, this is going to be a battle of the Titans, no doubt about it. We have a couple other teams, though, that are going to be gunning for a win. I mean, we also have Saris, the Pros Closet, that come in with a tremendous amount of experience. And Matt, there's not a team that's going to be hungrier to get a result today. So they've had some bad luck in the opening weeks here, and they are looking to right that ship out here today in London. And I never bet against this team. Dan Fleeman, David Talbot, Ryan Larson, Mike Cuming, and Eric Levinson. This is a team that, if they put it all together, is always going to be a threat for the podium. So that's a good look at 3 of the big teams. And these were the 3 teams that actually made up the podium the last time that we raced on this course in season 2. So those were somewhat easy picks to make, Matt. But when you were mentioning BZR and Leonard Tugels on that team. He's their captain, and that team, along with Kirkmeyer, I have a great time announcing some Zwift community races with Kate Bates, and she taught me the Australian term smoky, outsider, dark horse. Well, Kirkmeyer, I don't know if you can even really call them a dark horse, Matt. They just might win today. I'm getting goosebumps already. We are locked and loaded. This is not a drill. Big time bike racing is back here in London, and I think our first teams are out on course here, Matt.
They are indeed. Well, it's Dutch e-racing, a team that in 20th position overall at the moment. We know they're a team that we're certainly looking to move up the rankings. They're their lineup. Joost van der Bosch, should I say. Michael Voets, he's previously won individual rounds. I think I seem to remember he won last year in Richmond. Etienne van Empel and Bertus Turks. Very, very strong team indeed. Only starting out with 4 at a slight disadvantage. But again, a team that have performed pretty well in the team time trials before and looking good this early. And remember, the teams go out at 1 minute intervals. The course is the Greatest London Flat, as many of you will know, of course. 31 kilometers long, only 164 meters of elevation. We've got a couple of time checks as well. 3, in fact. The Mall, 7.6 Ks. Westminster at 16.8. Lower Thames Street at 24.1. And if you're lucky, we might even throw in a cheeky Fartus starter as well, so that the team that scorched through the first 2 Ks will have a little checklist for that. But Dave, they're underway, and this is a quick course, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, Matt. Michael Voltz here is a previous winner in the ZRL. This is a team that on paper should have a solid ride out here today. The Dutch are extremely experienced. And Matt, that bonus 2K check that we're talking about, that actually tells you a lot about how quickly the teams were able to get up to speed and get organized and just get into that jet fresh flow that you're looking for that makes a successful team time trial effort. You and Hannah did a great job of analyzing really what it takes here. The Dutch look extremely good at this point. And again, they haven't hit that checkpoint yet, but I'm expecting this to be one of the better times that we see out there. They got it up to speed very, very quickly. You almost want to, it's almost like a jetliner taking off of the runway. You want to get up to speed and lift off, and then you're into race mode. But if you have that rider surging, a little bit of a gap, having to weld that back together, then another rider going up the front, it really, really just sets you off on the wrong foot. Matt, this is a team, when you look at draft that we're joining right now, this is a team. So this is a raw watts course. Really, it's so rare in the ZRL that you would say bigger is better, right? 90% of the time, it really is going to be watts per kilogram and the light riders that excel in this platform. Today is not that day. And draft wants to make hay while it's out in the field. They've got Ed Veal, who I don't have the riders' weights in front of me, but they have a couple of guys that push over the top of 80 kilo. Here on this team. For guys racing in the ZRL, they might have the 2 biggest riders in the ZRL on this team draft. Normally, not much of an advantage, if an advantage at all, but here it's going to be huge. Draft is looking to, again, have a big day out here. Jed Scott, Bruce Bird, Ed Veal, Sean Guidish, and Ryan Rutherham. It's a strong team, and I think that maybe a little bit underappreciated.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen them race. Well, I think Bruce Bird has been one of the main protagonists, one of those riders, as you said, who were happy to attack, happy to roll the dice, happy to take a risk. But in doing that, we get a real insight into the pure power that he can actually put out. And that's going to be a really, really important component part of today. I agree exactly with what you're saying. You look at pure mathematics. This is all about generating as much power, and it will favour the teams with the heavier riders, but also it's going to favour the teams that can ride technically really well. It's all right producing lots of power, Dave, isn't it? But if you don't get it technically correct and you start opening gaps, you don't get any recovery at all. So these teams need to be dialed. But over the last couple of seasons, we've seen all of the teams exponentially increase their skill levels at making sure this is dialed. I'll throw it over to you, Dave. Next up, Team Swedish Zwifters. I call them TSZ.
That works. Matt, I have to add, it looks like Ed Veal was a scratch today, which is a big loss for them. Yeah, so talking about draft racing, but here we go with TSZ. I love it. Johan Noren, Anders Friis, Marcus Dorst, Tobias Olsen, and Jimmy Bowden. Now, Sweden if you want to look at the totem pole of nations that race in esports, Sweden punches above their weight. Like the Norwegians, I would say, as pound for pound, ounce for ounce, this country absolutely rocks esports. And Sweden, when we had our Nations Challenge going back a few months ago, Sweden won. And these guys are absolutely perfectionists at this discipline of the team's time trial. So I'm going to be interested to see what kind of a split they had. We'll see if we're hoping to collect the data from 2K. No promises, but we certainly will have splits coming up at 7.6, as Matt mentioned, from the mall split, Westminster, right around the midpoint. 31K of racing, time taken off of your third rider. And so I don't know who named this course, Matt, Greatest London Flat. When I'm out there riding, it's nothing but going up and down out there. I guess it's flat if you're a World Tour rider. It's all relative, isn't it? As we go back here and pick up the World Elite Zwifters, that beautiful Welsh flag.
Yeah, the World of Elite Zwifters. Of course, we've got Joe Rees, Elliot Holton, Chris Yip, Louise Moore, and then we've got Jim Van Ruth. As you can see, look at all the different flags there. A couple of Canadians, we have a Dutchman, we have an Irishman, and we've got a Welsh person as well. And that's a real nice tight formation. A team that were newly promoted last season managed to stay up, so a team that's come through the ranks from the community divisions and have established themselves really well. Early stages for them, 1.7Ks, but this is one of the most technical parts of the circuit, not in terms of actually the road twisting, it's just that they carry a lot of speed into that tunnel. It then kicks up again, and as I was saying to Hannah, all of us, you, me and Hannah and Dave, have all ridden this circuit, and this particular section, it looks as flat as a pancake, but I tell you what, you can really feel the bite. You need to make sure you get the tempo just right. This is a tough section.
I felt like I was riding through wet cement, to tell you the truth. So it certainly is. You know, the World Elite Zwifters, they don't have an American, but they do have a guy named Jim and a guy named Joe. So I feel like they're at least got an American vibe on the team here. This is a great squad. They participate in the WTRL, the World Tactical Racing League team time trials many times to really sharpen their sword. As this, you and Hannah are exactly right. As I had an old language teacher back in high school that talked about repetition is the mother of learning. Well, in team time trialing, that is very true. You need to go through the experiences of understanding what you're going to do in a multitude of scenarios. The one thing you don't have to deal with here is a flat tire, but this team has certainly got the experience. They'll be looking to put together a good ride on a course that favors a team that has done their work as far as this discipline of team time trialing.
Indeed. Well, let's have a look at the Zwift Warriors cycling team, made up of 4 Japanese riders who last season, should I say, really took some of the races by storm, particularly Takado Aikida really performed well. Remember that 3rd place on the individual race in Innsbruck. He can climb very well, but he's got a real punch. Kanji Abeki, Hinadori Sosauchi, and Ryosuke Honda looking good. It's a shame they've only started with 4 riders here today. That is going to impact a little bit later on, of course. The more riders you've got, the more opportunity there is to rest up between your efforts. But I've been really impressed with the Zwift Warriors cycling team over the last year. They're a new team. Great to see the Japanese really kind of getting stuck into these. We know how well they race, but they are not making up the numbers. Last year, they really, really impressed me. Didn't get relegated and are now firmly part of this Premier Division.
Yeah, I think they were one of the coolest stories that we had in season 2, talking about Zwift Warriors cycling right here. They do have one Australian that is on the roster, but it's all Japanese riders out here. And you're right. You know, Matt, when Takado Ikeda made his mark early last season, that was exciting. This team has an energy to it. They came out of APAC, which is that Asia Pacific community division. They're the first ones that race on Tuesdays. The APAC races have already happened 6 hours earlier today. So it's really great to see them go out of their way, because it's not a convenient time zone to be racing out of as well when you're there in Japan. So this is a team that's easy to get behind. They are motoring out here on course today, and fittingly, they've got a rider named Honda he's operating like a motorbike right now, as they would say.
It certainly is. So I actually own a Honda, and they're one of the most reliable engines in
sure
the
are.
world. Other cars, of course, are available, but now Honda sat just at the back there. I'm interested, again, just look at the stats here. If you're kind of trying to get a kind of grip of what this is all about, it's about trying to go as quickly as you can. The third rider will count, but energy saving and trying to recover between these very, very short, intense efforts on the front is absolutely crucial. You can tell the rider on the front at the moment is Akeda. Look at that, 474 watts, kicking out 6.5 watts a kilo. He'll probably ride for about 20, 30 seconds, but meanwhile, on the back there, Hidenori Sasaki putting out 150 watts less. That just really shows you how much easier it is, by no means easy, but how much easier it is to sit at the back. But it's a short turns on the front. Keep that speed high but smooth. That's the key here, Dave, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that formula is you hit the front. Well, I've talked about PO Auto, who we'll see a little bit later. They're going to be one of the last teams to start today. But it really is, I mean, if you watch, and obviously depending on how many kilograms you weigh, but these riders basically, a 65 kilo rider is hitting the front at around 500 plus watts, keeping it there for 30 seconds and then rotating off. And it's precise, it's brutally efficient, but I mean, it really is, you're either on or you're recovering and getting ready to do it again. So taking a look now at a lot of German flags on our screen here, but let's go look at our fastest starters from 2K. And well, that next Esports team putting up a very quick time here at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. You can see Swedish was right there. That's 0.16 seconds back. This is incredibly close here. Matt, I'm loving this. We have 4 teams within 0.2 of a second at that first 2K check. That's Olympic level racing that we're looking at here. And then World Elite Zwifters are only at 1.89 back, and that is 5th place. Look how tightly packed in our top 10 is here from 2K. That's very, very interesting. It shows me we've got one humdinger of a race to look forward to here, Matt.
It certainly is, and it shows there's no one team at the moment that are head and shoulders above. They've all started off at a similar pace. Clearly nobody has gone out of the blocks too quickly, and because they're so kind of tightly packed, it just shows again that season, as we roll through each different season, the gaps between the teams, Dave, which is an indicator of how higher quality the squads and the racing is in the community leagues, the gaps are getting narrower between these teams. There's no team way in front. Every single team in this division have this kind of strengths and weaknesses, but generally speaking, there's not a great deal between these teams now. This is going to be really hard fought for, and that, okay, an early time split just shows how evenly matched they are so far.
Yeah, I think we've really found parity is the word here, which is what every league is looking for. When you come into a race, Matt, and you only have 3 teams that you think have a chance to win, it's nowhere near as exciting or as fun as, I mean, now the scenario is, I think that there's 5 teams that have a decent chance of winning, but another 10 teams out here that have an outside chance of winning, and that is incredibly exciting. Hey, good to see No Pins R3RE Racing Team here. Chris Smart, Liam Bard, Zach Harner, Tom Lowe, and Jesse Seaman. This is a team that's looking to make a big step up out here today. They've got 5 riders together. You talked about how important that is, Matt, and they look like they're moving along quite nicely right now.
Yeah, they certainly do. Different styles of pain cave there, but no, they kept the key is keeping the gaps between the riders as tight as possible. The ideal formation is to be in one long line, but I tell you what, that is very, very hard to execute, but the more that these riders race these team time trials, the more they ride as a unit, and believe you me, these riders will be out riding as a unit, and the more they understand each other, the more efficient they will become. And with each team time trial that we have in the Zwift Racing Leagues, these teams are getting better and better. And this is a really, really strong example, Dave, of how to ride in a unit. Lowe, Seaman, Harner, Bard and Smart looking good as they round the top of them all and head down the other side to go. They'll be going through the kind of finishing arch for the first time in around 1 kilometre. They do 2 laps of this course, of course. They'll come back through that kilometre to go board, but this is a real fast section of the course, touching around 50 k's an hour down here.
And you can see as we jump in with Legion now, Matt, all of the teams that we've seen so far have had, I wouldn't even call it an issue, because you could do a whole lot worse than blobbing up out here. The big problem is having the big splits opening up that you have to weld back together. So right now you're seeing these teams, well, and they're working with a new architecture in the game too. There have been some changes made. So there have been some slight adjustments, and the feel that these, I mean, the nuances of the touch required out here, how you have to feather these watts. And when you're trying to create that perfect formation, which is, I agree with you, Matt, when you were saying, I mean, the perfect formation on a day like today is to be completely single file, front rider rotates off, drops it at the end. Now, the reality of that is nil, because you're going to have teams where riders go through a bad spell, they have to skip a turn, whatever it might be. It's never going to be as perfect as that. So you figure things out. And as Hannah said, riders like Freddie Ovett should be taking longer pulls. But we're talking on a day like today of if the average pull for the team was 30 seconds, maybe Freddie Ovett takes 51 minute long pulls. Well, but the other three riders that we're looking at are all very strong in their own right. Lance Hayden is one of the best American cyclocross racers, really got cheated out, like many riders, not just Lance, but got cheated out of a cyclocross season here in 2021. But they'll be back as we jump in with next Esport. I was wondering if Ashton Lambie had taken the start for next, because they had that fastest time at 2K, but Matt, he is not here. We do have the Czech rider, Daniel Turek, Zach Nair, Scott Catanzaro, Mark Bruce, and Brian Duffy Jr. To me, Matt, Brian Duffy Jr., don't sleep on that rider. He is going to have some big results this year. A huge, huge talent. This is a team that, when they came out of the community, they didn't really focus on the team time trial. Now that they're in Premier, they've taken it to another level. And I'm going to be really interested to see what kind of a ride they can put together out here on Greatest London Flat. Okay, they got 5 together, and they are rolling like a boss right now. Good job by Next.
Yeah, they're looking very, very good at the moment. That's a nice kit as well, that kind of green-black, green fade that they've got. Really funky kit, but more importantly, they're riding very, very well indeed. That real tight-knit unit. A nice focus on there. Look at Daniel Turek. He's a very, very experienced ex-road pro, so brings that wealth of endurance and experience, and has really adapted very, very well indeed to riding on at this platform. They've just crossed the line there, so that should be the first intermediate split. Remember, the first intermediate split, we'll get those if we can to you. The first split comes at 7.6. They've just gone through that now. We'll do it in a few meters time, and then we've got the Westminster and then Lower Thames here. But this is a good bit of riding here. Very, very close together. And just to go back to your point, Dave, you talked about the nuance of riding. Riding on the road, there's a nuance, but in Zwift, as we look at Restart now, it's all about understanding the kind of really gradual increase and decrease in power. You cannot afford to surge in a team time trial like this. And it really kind of, when I rode my first team time trial in the Zwift community, I'm 50 years of age, I'd never kind of felt more connected to my bike, because I've never ridden with such kind of delicacy. You really have to just know how to apply the power and decrease the power so gradually. It's really lovely to kind of learn it.
Yeah, feathering the accelerator is something that many cyclists don't really learn how to do until they get involved with the team time trial effort. In a breakaway, you're not really that concerned about the other guys in the break, their feelings, or if you're putting them under a little pressure, that's maybe not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing in the team time trial. We're in with Restart now. This is going to be Dean Cunningham. He's the Scottish powerhouse. And it looks like he actually has been dropped out there. I have a feeling that might have been a technical issue. Adrian Bueller, Daniel Jem Rosick, Jaden Yeager, who we've talked about a fair amount here in the ZRL, and Merlin Dallier. That's Restart that we're looking at. But you can see this is what we were talking about the feathering here. This gap from our lead rider back to the rest of the team is sub-ideal.
It certainly is. It looks like it's Jaeger. I mean, they're all putting out similar amount of power, and that's what you shouldn't get. You should get one rider putting out substantially more, but it's Jamrozic on the front there. He's actually had to knock it down. He was up around 500-600 watts. He had to ease off to let Jaeger, I think it's Adrien Vullier, the Frenchman, try and go through. Again, kicking out 8 watts a kilo. Well, it's Villiers in third place, should I say. But you can just see Jaden Jager there, a rider who's actually represented the USA at national level before, choosing to ride in his national kit there. But tiny little bit scrappy there coming through the finish. But hopefully they'll tidy things up a little bit later on. But look at the second split time. Next, Esports there are the quickest. Sorry, Saris and the Pros Closet, should I say, are the quickest. Next at 3 seconds. World of Elite Zwift is at 13. Zwift Warriors at 14. Team Swedish Zwift is at 15. Then Beast Mode at 16. Dave, the gaps slowly starting to pull apart now as we get deeper into this team time trial. But that's a great. You tipped Saris and the Pros Closet third last time, 35 seconds behind Canyon Esports. This is looking good, but we have several other big teams still to pass through that split yet, but solid performance by them so far.
Yeah, as they unroll the cinnamon roll of watts out here. It's nice to see Saris, and we're in with Saris right now. That's going to be Talbot that we're looking at. This team has had some tough breaks in the, going back through the last part of season 2 into the first part of season 1, and they will come right, and I have a feeling it's today. I'm excited for them because there's no team that deserves a result more, but cycling is a cruel mistress. It really is. But 5 together, motivated, and no team is riding as well as Saris right now. Dan Fleeman, he's got World Tour experience. David Talbot, Ryan Larson, Mike Cuming, and Eric Levinson. I love their chances out here. They're looking to upset the apple cart a little bit. I mean, Canyon comes in. So if you went back to last year, the top 3 in order were Canyon for gold, P.O. Auto Ceramic Speed took the silver, and this team was the bronze medalist. So this would be, I don't know if I'd call it it's no upset. They're one of the best teams in esports, but it would be, again, a significant comeback for them, and maybe, kind of rewriting the second half of the season script is what they would love to do. It happens to the best of teams. You can see that little bit of a split opening up out here. It is so subtle what it takes to be the perfect ride out here. So good to see Saris the Pros Closet is going to be in the mix. We're still waiting to see what we've got from P.O. Auto and the Canyon out here, because this one does turn into a battle royale. No doubt about it in this raw one battle. And here we go. So we're moving through some new teams that we haven't seen yet.
This is Finesse Esports now. Alex Tenselhoff, Timmy Bauer, Matt Osborne, Kenny Nyson, and Kiel Power. So a couple of Americans. We have a rider from Canada, and then the Netherlands, and then Belgium there. So a good lineup here. They're riding pretty well at the moment. A nice tight formation so far for Finesse Esports. Again, they're a team that we've seen around. They came up last year, didn't they? They were promoted last year, Finesse, into the Premier Division, but looking good at the moment. Although Timmy Bauer, it looks as if he might have actually been detached. Looking at the power that he's putting out, they have lost the American Bauer, so it's down to Tenselhoff, Osborne, Nyson, and Power. And here we go. Yeah, definitely Timmy Bauer has had a bit of a problem there, but great to see the pain caves of all these different riders giving you an insight into the effort they're putting out at the moment. It is Osborne on the front at the moment, kicking out just under 5.5 watts a kilo. The Canadian looking good as we head through the centre, right through the centre of London, not too far from Westminster here. And for the back end of the circuit, they'll head through the tunnels, through the tube tunnels, head out into Surrey, where things get a little bit rolling. And please do make sure you get behind these riders. Get in the comment section here on YouTube if you're watching live, and importantly, fire up your Zwift companion app. Give these riders some ride-ons just to try and boost them, because this discipline day, it's so hard. It's basically kind of 37 minutes of suffering, isn't it?
It really is, Matt. And here's a man who knows how to suffer right in the middle of your screen there, Matt Osborne. He is going to have a golden moment in the ZRL. Not many riders, Matt, have shown us the courage to try to break away in a solo attack in one of our points races, and Matt has done that. This Canadian has the heart of a lion. So Finesse Esports is going to have some big moments to look forward to as they're getting stuck in now, about a third of the way in. But look at the wattage there from Osborne. He's hitting almost 600 watts, and his heart rate saying around 160. This guy's a monster, no doubt about it. So Finesse Esports, when they I'm really surprised that they lost Timmy Bauer there. that certainly won't be a mechanical. But let's go check in with BRT and see how Bolt Racing is doing. Team of Nicky Hug and company. Matt, it's interesting. I have a feeling the new dynamics out there that are at play with Zwift, every team seems to be having a little bit of trouble just kind of keeping the razor's edge sharp out here. And I have a feeling that they've all got some work to do as we all are constantly adapting out here in the world of Zwift.
Yeah, I mean, you actually notice it. I mean, when you're riding in a bunch, it was in its kind of beta phase a little while ago, and now it's been kind of gradually introduced into more and more events. But what you won't see, as you saw in riding previously in Zwift, quite often you could actually ride through another rider, but now you can ride round riders. So it's a little bit more realistic, isn't it, in terms of what the avatars actually do, and that's reflected in your ability to draft and go past riders. So your avatar, as you can see, will actually move round the rider in front rather than kind of passing through them, and that very, very gently has affected the way that you need to generate power when riding in a group. I think it's a change for the good, but I think you're quite right there, Dave. It does take a little bit of time for these riders to get used to it, especially when you're riding at or near threshold, as we look at Hug, Budge, Archer, Davies and Brooke. One rider just off the back there, always the worst place to be when you've done your turn and you're starting to suffer. That's Nicky Hug, but he's one of those riders who generates a lot of power. He should be able to get back on here, but he's absolutely having to rivet himself to get back in contact here.
Yeah, as a matter, this is a shocker because I have always thought of Nicky Hug as one of, look at him right now though. He is turning himself inside out, flogging himself like a rented mule that's due back and burn in an hour and a half, man. This guy has no regard for his well-being as he's going to rejoin. Oh, man, so this can show you how brutal a team time trial can be. But the Swiss rider, again, one of the top riders in the league here, has now rejoined his teammates. Will Budge, Simon Archer, as you mentioned, Hal Davies. I love Hal Davies. He's up out of the saddle now going to the whip here, the Welsh rider. And then we've got Matt Brooke here. This is a cheeky team. And look at that now as Nicky Hug's gone to the front of the team here.
I think, Dave, he was carrying so much momentum from accelerating. The thing is, again, we don't want to overly criticise, but that's the way, unless he had some sort of little bit of a problem. Nicky Hug, one of the strongest riders on this team, but his team actually did have to back off. But even when the riders in front, Dave, are riding at like 350 watts, which kind of isn't a ridiculously high amount at this level, to close 20 meters, even doing 450 watts, takes a lot of effort, doesn't it? I mean, and that showed because Nicky Hug is going to be he's going to have to have dug deep into his suitcase of solace to actually kind of survive. But here we go. It's time for Insured, powered by Pedal Power. Take it away, Dave.
Yes, somewhere in London, someone's microwave oven started flickering and then turned off as Nicky dimmed the power grid. There, as we've got Insured, presented by Pedal Power now. Thomas Thrall, it has to be Canada that you note here. They have had multiple riders spread across various teams that have really stepped up here in the ZRL, and Thomas Thrall is one of them as he ended up right up there with a great ride already this season as an individual part of a team. So Thomas Thrall, Sean Hollenbeck, Connor McGoldrick, another rider to watch without a doubt, Jake Simmons, and the director sportif for the U.S. national team at the World Championships, and an outrageously strong rider in his own right, Patrick Wally. So good look at Insured, presented by Pedal Power, and they're a team that's cracked the code, Matt. That's not a blob. That's about as aero as you get right now.
Oh, definitely. And like you say, if you do get it wrong, well, this team certainly isn't. I mean, but the thing is, when you've got a ride like Patrick Wallet riding in the team with that sort of experience, he's going to be the one speaking when he can, you can imagine. But you can just look at the suffering there, just under 6 watts a kilo. The rider just going through at the front at the moment. Looking at the watts is going to be Conor McGoldrick, the British rider, doing his turn on the front. A couple of little fissures starting to open up as McGoldrick does a very, very long turn on the front. And again, it's going to be horses for courses here. He'll be instructed if he's feeling good, if he's one of the heavier riders, he'll do some longer turns, Dave, running on the flatter, slightly downhill sections. And then the slightly lighter riders will take their turn on the front on the little drags. But it's a really hard course to get right, this one, because it's no light and day. It's really just different shades of tempo, isn't there, and gradients to deal with. Arguably, although it's essentially flat, it's because of the subtle changes. They're quite often hard to manage, aren't they?
I couldn't agree more. That's extremely well put, Matt. It's not a simple team time trial course. It's not, there's no extended climbs, which is really what you're not looking for. What you have here is it's like an F1 course for team trialing. Without any doubt. And I would have to say, if we were grading this on technical ability only right now, and we'll see at that next split that comes up, they would have just gone past that Westminster split at 16.8 kn. But Matt, as far as technically, I don't think anyone is riding better than Insured, presented by Pedal Power out here. The last minute and a half or 2 minutes that we've spent with this team, they have been brilliant out here. It's a little hard to tell if they're making the watts required to be up on the podium today, but I wouldn't want to bet against them. And you see Tom Dahl coming to the front now. This guy is a beast. And actually, I apologize, that's going to be Hollenbeck moving to the front with Thrall slotting right in there, but really good ride.
Well, it's next up is
Team
Callis. Callis Esports. I mean, a team that lost one of their big riders, didn't they? They lost one of their big hitters to Movistar. Vidal Mel moved across from this team in the transfer window, I guess we could call it, to Movistar. But Callis Esports Racing Team, they won't be dimmed at all, because they have a very strong lineup indeed. Harvard Lednes, Erik Gisland, Kichel Farup, Christian Oftendal and Martin Rost Omdahl. This is a formidable 5 riders, and again, they've done 13.8 Ks. The formation, Dave, looks to be pretty good at the moment as one of their strongest riders. Glednes now hits the front. Look at that, 7.3 watts a kilo. He's holding just under 600 watts, but look how much the riders are saving behind. 350 watts, so kind of 300 watt saving if you're riding near the back. So Oftendal and Farup just under 350, but yeah, massive difference in sitting on. But the key is to keep it nice and tight.
Yeah, tremendous amount of experience. Havard is a previous winner in one of our points races as well here in the ZRL. So I was hoping you would do the roll call of names, Matt, because I have never met a Norwegian that doesn't speak English, but I've never met an American that speaks Norwegian. So that is a lot of credit to Norway, that's for sure. Martin Roste Omdahl, Christian Oftdal, Kjell Ferup, Erik Island, and Havard Gjeldnes. Let's see how I rate with that.
I think that was a good effort, Dave. I mean, I think we'll have to, if they watch this back, maybe we should get them to kind of comment on our ability to speak Norwegian.
Yes.
But one thing is for sure, their ability to go very quickly indeed is undoubted. Callis Esports looking good here. As you said, Dave, a lot of experience. They've got those wins, and so we should have the splits just coming up at the moment. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of information for you just to see if we can start to split these teams up. Let's have a look. It is, well, look at this. Saris on the pros closet, currently leading after split number 1 at the Mall. But look at the gap. Saris absolutely on fire. But look, Callis Esports on the screen, less than 1 second behind. Canyon, superb ride from then at 3.09. Next, well, that's a turn up for the books there in 4th. Finesse at 3. BRT Mountain flying at just under 6. Then we have BZR at 6.82. Kirkmare at 13. World Elite at 13. And the P Auto Ceramic Speed at 14. Dave, the first 10 teams after 7.5 Ks separated by only 14 seconds, but not much between the first 2 teams. But this is a superb performance by Saris. Big question is, Dave, can they hold this momentum? Can they keep it together and maintain the pace? Because they are scorching around London right now.
If I was the director, Matt, I would always rather take my chances by going out hot and trying to hold on. But I have a feeling this is going to be fun. This is why I love the team's time trial so much, Matt, because watch this now. So some of the top teams will have pacing schedules that will have them putting negative splits in. And you're going to see now in the last 10 minutes, well, so from the final split to the finish, you're going to see a couple teams, and my prediction here would be that you're going to see PO Auto Ceramic Speed and BZR climb way up the table from that final split to the finish. Now, I very well could be wrong. Maybe Pio Otto's not having a great day. 14 seconds out at that first split, which comes very... Oh, we're looking at Westminster now. This is going to tell us a lot more here. Now, some teams still haven't come through, so remembering that, we still won't see a Canyon, we won't see a Pio Otto, and we won't see... Yeah, so you're not seeing yet the pros closet here. So next esport, and let's call that, you know what, World Championships, Matt, they have different waves that go out. We really almost have 2 waves out here on the course now. And in the first wave, obviously next esport has the fastest time, and by a lot here. But I don't know that that's going to be faster than going to be faster than Calais at this point.
Well, Calais is just crossing over the bridge, heading towards the Surrey Hills. We don't go through any of the big climbs. We don't go through some of the big ones. Box Hill, it's some gentle rollers as we look at BZR Sports Solid, and they have performed very, very solidly indeed over the last couple of weeks. And they are they're actually sitting in 5th place at the moment, heading into this race. And for a newly promoted team, they are really punching above their weight. Turgles, we saw animate last week. He's the rider just on the front at the moment, sticking out. He did surge there, sticking out 10 watts a kilo. And Matthew de Kock there, out of the saddle. Jasper Parideans looking good as well. And then Stefan van Alst and Joni de Bock. So this is a really, really impressive formation. And again, first real test on a course like this. But your favourite there, Turgles, a key component part of this squad that really has impressed since their arrival in the Premier Division.
It's the first time, Matt, that I've ever actually seen an in-camera with Leonard Turgles, and it just sent shivers down my spine. I felt like I saw Bigfoot or something. Like, this guy is going to be a big, big part of the storyline for the rest of the ZRL, as you see these Belgian flags here, and this is a team that is well drilled. Now, as Matt noted at the top of the show, this is a team that came out of the community, out of the European East Division, which was unbelievably competitive. Leonard had some solo breakaway wins there that really stunned the community, without any doubt. This team arrived, and they were never out of their league. They jumped into the deep end of the pool, and it looks like that's exactly where they were born to be. So I am really excited to see if they can pull off a top 5 or better out here today, and I think that that's not all that wild of a prediction. Going to Kirkmeyer now. This is the team of Stefan Kirkmeyer and company. This was a team, top of the show, I was predicting would have a breakthrough ride today. Now, they've been in the top 4 in team time trials. There's the Austrian Stefan Kirkmeyer. The rest of the team German. This is Andre Reinland, Jan Steinman, and Ingo Reichardt. A lot of talent on this team, Matt.
Yeah, there's certainly a team. I mean, their first ride, they were promoted, weren't they, after season 1, heading into season 2. And it was in the opening French team time trial in a season 2 that I think they were top 3, weren't they? And they really did open our eyes to the potential of this squad. And since then, they have ridden very, very strongly indeed. And of course, they sit at the moment in 4th position overall. Still a lot of racing still to go, but just showing how strong they are. They've got depth, not just in the team time trials, but they can really do well. They can really perform aggressively and race aggressively in the points races as well. But only 4 riders left, or they've started with 4 riders, should I say. Kirkmeyer, Leinland, Steinman and Reichardt. But there's some big numbers being put out at the moment as Reichardt goes to the front, just holding 7 watts a kilos. Plenty of ride-ons being given. Again, I'm going to give you guys at home a gentle nudge. Please do get involved in the comments. But more importantly, give these riders a bit of a ride on as well, because they're putting in a good performance. But this is this really horrible little technical part as they swing into the station here, out of the station and into the country lanes. Beautiful Richmond Park. And again, just gently undulating here, Dave. Now, still a long way to go. 12.2 k's to go, but it's crucial on this particular section that they get it right, isn't it? Because on these little drags, it's really, really easy to lose the wheel or put your team in too much difficulty. This is where you've really got to understand each other's physiology and the kind of where they are in the race.
And this is where the team captain, Matt, really needs to be a leader. And making sure as we jump in with Movistar here that there's Vidar Mel, who you were talking about, who transferred over from Calais, and what a huge addition he is. Gould on this team as well, the Danish rider. But Matt, you want to make sure that if you have a rider who's on the ropes, maybe struggling a little bit, that third, fourth rider on your team, that they're not finishing a pull before you go into a challenging section. You want to protect them. You need to shield them a little bit. And that's where the captain would tell them, give them a nod, tell them get off the front, take a shorter pull this time through, and let's keep you a little bit more fresh to get through this next challenging sector, so that our stronger riders can really make the most of their strength here. You have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the riders on your team. And does Vidar Mel have a weakness? I don't think so, as this is another one of the monsters. Look at him up out of the saddle now as he goes to the whip here. Miguel Angel Andres is he works at a Renault factory outside of Madrid, and is one of the most respected masters racers in Spain right now. And I love the fact that Miguel brings so much in real life respect, and really just comes from that awesome community of Spanish cyclists, and brings it to join us here in the ZRL. Daniel Gould is a rider for the future, and Pim van Diemen, absolutely a rider. There's no weak link on this team. And well, speaking of Dutch riders, let's take a look at the entire Dutch team as they see the finish line truss or gantry right in front of them there. This one is just about done and dusted.
Well, Dutch Racing, Jus van der Bosch, Mako Weitz, and Etienne van Empel. Bertus Turks just heading in to the finish line. So this will be an interesting performance by Dutch Racing as they cross the line. They've got a little bit further to go, I think, as well. But no, this is the first glimpse, of course, now of the Canyon Racing Team. So Canyon Esports, remember, they won on this course last year, so they know it very well. And they won by a pretty decent margin. Remember, the last time we raced on this course, Canyon Esports, as Dave said earlier on, 37-45, 33. Swedish Zwifters now just coming into the finish as well. We'll get the times up as quickly as we can. 3 riders left for Team Swedish Zwifters, so it's been an attritional evening in the saddle for these guys here. But looking good, and not too far behind the first team on the road, so maybe the best team, but it's early days yet.
It really is. And I mean, when you think about it, Matt, it's a good thing that we don't have actual weather conditions to deal with, because the teams really start almost 17, 18 minutes apart. So we really haven't seen Canyon that much, but obviously as we bring the teams home, we will be talking a lot about this squad. There he is. I would think the biggest star in esports today, certainly one of them, Lionel the Train Viassen, is Lionel, the Belgian rider on the squad. There is the New Zealander, Ollie Jones. South Africa's Gary Mueller, the American. I talked about almost 30 miles, 29 and a lot of change in an hour for Spencer Segerbruch there in his home state. He's in St. Louis boy. And Antoine van Noppen. A lot of talent, a lot of motivation. And, Matt, I think it's fair to say this team deserves it. Van Noppen has been dropped out of the group, so the Dutch rider out of the group right now and won't be back at the speed that they're carrying here. But this is one of a legacy squad, without any doubt here. When you look at it.
Indeed. Well, the Warriors now just rolling down into their finish. Good performance here by the Warriors, keeping it nice and tight. Again, this finish line takes an absolute seeming eternity to come. About 100 meters to go now as a few of the gaps start to open. Remember, it is the third rider to count. That is when the clock stops. So it is World of the Zwift Warriors cross the line there, but they're quite spread out. A big surge on the front there. Again, we'll get those times to you as soon as we can. As we look, of course, now to Pedersen. We're just moving a little bit further down. Another team just coming in to the finish now as well. Oh, this looks like it is. It's World of Elite Zwifters. Thanks very much indeed, Dave. They crossing the line. 3 riders. Looks like they've just detached 1 rider, but the team's now coming thick and fast. As we look at Beast Mode coming in, they've got about 800 meters to go, Dave, and they've still got 4 riders left in the mix. And that's the kind of, well, you certainly don't want just 3 riders later on, but although it's the 3rd rider to count, so solid performance here by the newly promoted team from the community division.
Yeah, I think that it's worth noting that the teams that we have promoted out of the community have really stepped up, and it's certainly set a new standard where the community teams are going to be expected to be right into the thick of it. Beast Mode Rose, again, this is the team that, well, sort of the team of Jason Osborne. We were talking about the world esports champion, comes out of Sebastian, does such a great job motivating, organizing his riders, and let's see what kind of a time Beast Mode can put up on the board. We have a lot of data to collect here at the finish line. We have really strong teams out on course. This is an exciting moment here in London as we're now starting to bring them back into the barn here, and now get our first look at PO Auto's ceramic speed, and this is obviously one of the big favorites that we've got racing with us today, and a little bit no muff out here today, so a little bit of a different lineup for the team. We talked about horses for courses. It's a raw watts course, so you're not going to go with your pure climbers today, and this is the Danish outfit: Anders Boldager, Niklas Pedersen, Jeppe Falk, Bjorn Andersen, and Emil Tudal. There's not a weak link on this wattage chain.
No, not at all. And as you said, Dave, already the end of last season, finished second on this course, looking very, very good indeed. They're just one rider's in a little bit of difficulty. I think it's Jeppe Falk. It's just, you can just see him on the left-hand side. Look at in the centre of your screen in the picture there. 6.1 watts a kilo, 7.4 watts a kilo, desperately trying to claw his way back into contention on these rolling roads inside Richmond Park. There's only so long a rider can put out that sort of power before the team has to make a decision to drop him off. But absolutely fascinating stuff as we see no pins now heading down the mall to finish their team time trial. The 31 kilometres for them nearly done and dusted as Smart, Hane, Bard, Lowe and Seaman. Looks like Lowe has gone, but Smart takes to the front. Good performance here by No Pins R3R E-Racing Team. Looks like one of their riders they were just catching there from earlier on, so they crossed the line. Their race is done and dusted, and as I said, we will get the results to you as quickly as we can as we look back into that nasty little steep climb in the underground, and we're looking at Canyon Esports. They're coming into the last few Ks of their ride.
And it looks like we're going to jump in with Legion as they finish. Matt, this perspective right here, you're looking down the barrel of pain. To tell you the truth, it seems like that finish gantry takes forever to arrive at this point, as your legs are literally pooling up with lactic acid here. It's important to remember, in a lot of cases, the teams that finish with 3, if they were able to sacrifice a rider and eke out a couple extra seconds, that might make a difference. Now, was 4th the last time we raced on this course. This is going to be next that we're looking at now. I love this kit, one of the standout kits that we've got in the ZRL, and let's see what next level can bring across the line here. And again, we will start collecting the times for you. We just want to give you a look at the teams as they finish here.
Well, just
back in with restart now, Matt.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. Just heading up towards the back end of the mall, up Parliament Hill here. It's only a very gentle rise. It's hard enough when you start racing. Dean Cunningham of Scotland, Edwin Blair of France, Daniel Zambrotsik of the United Arden Jaeger there too, and Merlin Delab. But Saris, well, they've been the team that has been setting the course on fire. And look at this. Saris have got restart in the crosshairs and are going to be bearing down on them. Dave, as we head into the last kilometre, this is only going to be like a kind of carrot of incentive for the men in green, yellow and white. A superb performance by Saris and the pros closet to nearly catch restart here.
That might be the difference maker, Matt. If you want to go back, I'm sure Rasan Bahati is watching this one closely. He was part of the Slipstream team that specialized in team time trials. That was their claim to fame in the early years of that squad. And now there's no doubt, Matt. And look at this. They're making the most of that. You talked about the carrot dangling out in front. Well, they are using that. They're gobbling that carrot up right now. As a matter of fact, that carrot it's already been digested at this point as they are pulling into the final straight here. It doesn't get better than this for Ceres. This is almost like a karma rebate for the Ceres Pros Closet team, as they're going to get to ride into the draft of another team restart here. Nothing they can do about it. Absolutely legal. It doesn't get better than that for a finale. That's a gift from God, to tell you the truth. When you look at the finish there for Ceres, the Pros Closet, if this is, Matt, a 0.2 of a second difference for the win, that was half a second right there.
Well, that was a superb performance by the 4 riders there from Paris and the Pros Closet. Now, looks like a great ride here by Canyon. They started off steady, but they've actually overtaken Movistar. So good ride here by Canyon Esports. Remember, essentially the defending champions on this course. Well, they've won the first 2 seasons of the Zwift Racing League. But sorry about the lack of intermediate time splits. We will get the full times for you as soon as we can. But it looks like, Dave, that Canyon have really picked things up. Maybe even riding a negative split. Vujasan now hits the front. As you say, probably the biggest superstar of e-racing. The Belgian firing on all cylinders here. But this looks like they could be turning the tide here. Because to catch a team like Movistar, who've been riding really well, that's big news.
Huge. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I mean, knowing the pedigree of this team, and we're going to go back now to the finish line here.
This is Finesse.
But there's no doubt that Canyon is on an incredible ride. This is Finesse, Alex Tenselhoff, Matt Usborn, Kenny Nyssen, and Kjell Bauer. So we'll bring them across the line. But really right now the story is Pio Auto, Canyon. Are they going to beat Ceres the Pros Closet today? That's a good question, Matt. I mean, I honestly... You really have to wonder here. So that was Finesse that we had finishing a moment ago. This is going to be BRT that we're looking at now coming across the line. So Bolt Racing has finished there.
Indeed. The BRT, a Mountain Fuel Hug, who we saw earlier on putting that big effort in to try and get back in contact with his flying teammates, Budge, Archer, Davis and Brooke. It looks like they're all, actually I think Will Budge has actually been dropped now. Brooke just moving off the front. Look at that, 6.5 watts a kilo, eager to try and get this race done and dusted. Thankfully for him, his teammates have got back in contact. They'll just swing left here on to the mall, heading towards Admiralty Arch, and then they'll have the finish line in sight. But this is almost the hardest bit, Dave. They're digging deep, but as you said, that gantry cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, you really feel like you're trying to come up from underwater right now and just breathe, and you can't breathe until you come underneath that line. Time taken off of the 3rd rider, so this little gap is not going to be a problem now. BRT hoping that they can put a very fast time up on the board here. So they are finishing now. Not that many teams still left out on course, and the story really does become Ceres, Pio Auto, and Canyon, the teams from last year. Although Callis had some very fast early splits, we haven't seen it split for a little while. And it sounds like Callis has gone by Insured, presented by Pedal Power. So they did just make a pass, is what we're reporting.
Indeed. Well, Callas, as we saw before, the only intermediate split that unfortunately we've been able to show you showed that Callas were in second, under 1 second behind Saris and the Pros Closet. So this is a superb performance. That would have helped them passing Insured, powered by Pedal Power. That extra little bit of an incentive just up the road to draw a bit more of a sting from them. But this is a thundering performance by the Norwegian squad. The Vikings have raided Buckingham Palace. Well, maybe I shouldn't really say that, but they're certainly absolutely flying here. Omdal, Oftedal, Farup, Jusland and Gjednes are thundering down the mall here. This is a superb performance by the Norwegian Raiders, and they cross the line. We'll get the times as soon as we can. Superb stuff. I think we've just lost Dave temporarily there.
If this was 1,400 years ago, Matt, it would be incredibly concerning to hear that the Vikings had invaded London. But I think that I think relationships have greatly improved, haven't they? So let's jump around now. We've got a lot of teams that are going to be coming in hot at the point. This is Kirkmeyer that we're looking at. 4 together, not bad. This was a team that had an outside shot to crack the top 3 today. Ingo Reichardt, the rider that you've got right in the middle of your screen. A lot of horsepower on this squad.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of question marks because we haven't seen a split for a little while here. So it's a little hard to say whether these teams are fighting for a top 3 spot or not. You know that there's not a world that I can imagine that Canyon and PO Auto, the way that they're riding out there, are not sitting up inside of the top 5 or even better than that, the top 3 right now. It is interesting to note that Knudsen and Muff did not take the start. That's an embarrassment of riches when you talk about PO Auto, that they have that kind of quality rider that they can sub out because this course is looking for more horsepower, Matt. But Kirkmeyer is obviously in the hunt for a win today.
Yep, and as you said, they're one of the teams, pound for pound, just raw watts they can deliver. We've seen it. This is year 2, or season 2, should I say, for them in the Premier Division. They just go under the Flamme Rouge. 1 kilometre to go for Kirkmeyer E-Racing Team. Stefan Kirkmeyer, the only Austrian on the all-German team, still keeping that formation together, but it looks like Inigo Reichardt was just on the front. Yeah, a little bit of a surge there as he gets keen. Again, riders now, they need to try and keep this formation. They might actually spend one rider in the finishing straight. Quite often, Dave, when there's only 4 riders left, one rider might just give one big humongous turn, swing off and just bail. Looks like that's done. 3 left as they head into the finishing straight.
Yeah, that was textbook. I mean, these guys put on a clinic out here. Again, a community team that has made a huge... So they come into the Premier League with a lot of question marks about how the community team's going to be able to compete. Well, they turned a lot of heads, and this ride today, this is definitely a top 5 performance. I can't imagine how this isn't. If you go back, the teams besides Canyon, PO Auto, Ceramic Speed, and Ceres that had top rides on this course in season 2, Kirkmeyer was one, Legion was the other. We saw Legion should have already finished out here. Kirkmeyer across the line now. We're back in with Canyon here.
We are indeed. That's rounding the top corner. 1,100 meters to go now for Canyon Esports. Lionel Vuillersan there. Ollie Jones, Gary Muller, Spencer Sugarbrooke, Antoine Van Noppen, we said already has been dropped. So they've got 4 riders less, but they've already caught a team, so they're looking pretty good here. 800 meters to go now for the team that won on at this course last year. Remember, the benchmark was set last year, the fastest time, 37:45. What can they do today? It definitely looks to me, although with the absence of time checks it's a little bit hard, but it does look to me, Dave, as if they've almost like ridden a negative split. They look to be moving pretty rapidly now.
Yeah, this team has that kind of experience. There's not many squads that can do what they're doing right now. Talking about Canyon Esports, look at Spencer Sugarbrooke here and that leg speed now. Okay, these guys are throwing more coal on the fire. They are absolutely galloping. They realize how close this one is going to be. Every 10th of a second is going to really matter. And now you can see they have lit the fuse. Is Canyon Esports the bomb here in London? I think so, as Lionel Vuillersan wants to bring them home. They've only got a few, like 100 meters left. There is the finish line. Oh, you might be looking at the winning ride. Very, very good chance.
Well, they certainly didn't leave anything out on the road. This was one of the teams that they caught. Movistar now coming in to finish their team time trial. There's Daniel Gould, Miguel Andres, and Pim van Diemen. They are the riders that are left. Vidal Mel has clearly had a little bit of an issue and have been dropped by his squad. So Andres, Gild and Van Diemen cross the line for the Movistar E-Team. And again, apologies for the lack of time checks. We'll get to those as soon as we can. And it's now only about 600 meters to go now for PO Auto, Ceramic Speed, Pedersen, Foldager, Falk, Andreasen and Tudal. Well, Andreasen is done and dusted. Looks like they're just down to a couple of riders and they've detached him. They need him to get back in contact here, Dave.
Yeah, and you know, I am hearing that Michael Knudsen actually has the flu, which is why he didn't start. I have a feeling that, Matt, will be the difference out here today. I think that really does tip the favor in advantage of Canyon, because Michael Knudsen is such a huge talent. This is not the PO Auto. Andres Foldager, who's been on the podium at the World Esports Championships. Nicholas Pedersen, you could say the same, but I think they were missing one key element out here today. It was like a bread without yeast.
There we go. Bread without yeast. It's another one of another sterling analogy that Dave keeps on rolling in week after week. That's why he is with us for the most strangest tangential analogies you could ever wish to cast your ears and eyes upon. It's a pleasure working with Dave. It's been, of course, great working with Hannah as well. Again, we do apologise for the lack of results. We'll get through to them as soon as possible, but I think it's time to bring on our friend Rasan Bahati for another one of Rasan's replays. Rasan, welcome back, mate.
Hey, another exciting team time trial on the men's side. Couldn't look away, honestly. I wanted to see how it was going to roll out, and I got to be honest with you. When Dave Towle started talking about team time trials with Slipstream, it made my heart rate go up. So please don't do that in the future. I just want to enjoy the bike racing, not have a heart attack while I sit here. But yeah, once again, exciting racing. I was also thinking it's very interesting to think like how these riders mesh together. When you look at the teams that are just in sync and in perfect unison, they're spread out sometimes across different countries, states, areas, and they're on different trainers. Wi-Fi is a little different, but they could sync all up. It takes a lot of talent to figure that out. And another exciting race under the team time trial.
I tell you what, I mean, that's a really interesting kind of point that you've touched on there, Rasan. I mean, I've only ridden one at Team Time Trial for the Zwift HQ Rockets, but boy, did I learn so much. I mean, and there's literally thousands of teams now in the Zwift community. So what would be your message, Rasan, to anybody who's watching this, who's on Zwift, to give it a go? Because I think until you've ridden one, it's a wonderful spectacle, but until you've ridden one, you don't really fully understand. So would you advise people to jump on the Zwift community and just give it a go?
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a conversation with a friend about Zwift. He's been doing the same route over and over again. And I'm like, hey, you got to get out and do something new. Hopping in a team time trial is a good way to figure out where your fitness is and also have some fun. Well, sometimes it's fun. They definitely hurt, but it's a good way to interact with the community. You know what I mean? And have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I think it is fun. It's a kind of weird bit of fun, but no, you do learn a lot about yourself. And again, it's another way for this wonderful community to get together. Rasan, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week for some more Rasan's replays. But for now, thanks very much indeed. I do believe, my friend, and everybody watching, we have some provisional results for the men's. I must stress these are provisional. Hopefully they will appear on our screen forthwith. And there we go. Well, Kalas Esports, remember they were second at the first intermediate split by 0.9 of a second. Remember, this is provisional, but Kalas Esports provisionally have taken it 38.41 is their time. Saris and the Pros Closet in second with a 38.56. Canyon Esports in third with a 38.57. Well, a very, very solid performance there by Next Esport in fourth with a 39.07. BZR Sports Solid in fifth with 39.10. Pia Auto Ceramic Speed there with a 39.13. These are really, really tightly packed as we go down the top 10. Finesse in seventh. Kirkmare E-Racing with a 39.32. 3 seconds further adrift, World Elite Zwifters powered by Oral 7 at 39.35. And then rounding out the top 10 on page 1 of our 20 teams, Legion of Los Angeles. And again, I must stress these results are provisional. Beast Mode powered by Rose, they're 11th. Team Swedish Swifters are in 12th position with a 39.46. 10 seconds further back, BRT Mountain Fuel. Then we have Restart, Insured, powered by Pedal Power, No Pins R3RE Race Team, Draft, Zwift Warriors Cycling, Movistar E-Team fell away towards the end, and then Dutch Racing rounding out the top 20 with a 40.58. So there we go. Just stressing there that those are provisional, but let's bring you guys back in. I mean, first, Hannah, welcome back. Did you enjoy the men's racing there? I mean, that was spectacular stuff, wasn't it?
It certainly was. It was great, and likewise that we saw in the women's racing. Just looking at those results, those provisional results, just how close the times were. It's really incredible. Only 1 second separating second and third place. So it just shows how important it is to make sure you're able to get the fastest time out there possible, and not leave any stone unturned when it comes to the course and the prep and the strategy and your pacing strategy.
Certainly is. And Dave, another riveting race and a first win in a team time trial for Callas. They've been knocking on the door, so much experience, lost one of their key riders to Movistar, but still on the day, again provisionally, looked like, well, they've their best rides in, I think, all 3 seasons.
I think that's a fascinating point, Matt. It's not about any one star. You're referencing Vidar, who left the team. Well, how about the 5 other riders that stepped up? Callas is one of the longest standing teams in esports. They've been around forever, and this has got to go down as the biggest win in their team's history. I'm really, really happy for the Norwegian squad. They deserved it.
They certainly did. Again, must stress their provisional times, but no, a superb ride by Callas, who've been knocking on the door for a long time. Let's have a look at what that means for the overall standings in the men's first up. So, of course, Callas taking that win. It does mean that another solid performance means that Canyon Esports are at the top. And they're not drawing now, 55 points to the good. PO Auto Ceramic Speed there in second with 52. Callas move up, courtesy of that win today and a second place in the opening round. They're now in third with 49. Then we have BZR Sports Solid, who are performing solidly. Look at that, a newly promoted team now in fourth place with 45 points. 1 point further back, Kirkmare Racing Team. Then we have Saris and the Pros Closet, who of course were second today. Then we have Finesse, Movistar, BRT Mountain Fuel, and Next Esports. Another one of those promoted teams who really are impressing in their debut season in the Premier Division. Let's have a look at page 2. 11th Insured, powered by Pedal Power. 12th Restart. Then we have World of Elite Zwifters, powered by Oral 7. Legion of Los Angeles there in 14th. Then we have Beast Mode, powered by Rose. No Pins R3 E-Racing Team in 16th. 17th goes to Team Swedish Zwifters with 16 points. Then equal with on 18th is the Zwift Warriors Cycling Team and Draft with 10 points adrift, 10 points apiece, should I say. And then rounding out the top 20, Dutch Racing there with 6 points. So there we go. We're moving swiftly on to the women's. Let's have a look at the overall standings in the women's racing. Well, there we go. Absolutely incredible. 4 teams equal on points. Absolutely fascinating stuff. That is going to make for an amazing second half to season 3 of the Zwift Racing League. Heino lead courtesy of those 2 victories. Of course, on countback, it's the teams with both wins, but they are equal on points with Team Swedish Zwifters, I Race Like a Girl, and Team 2024. Absolutely spectacular stuff. Then we have Movistar E-Team with 46, Canyon Esports there with 47, Ionian there in 7th, Cryo RDT, Saris and the Pros Closet in 9th, and then Beast Mode powered by Rose there in 10th place with 33. Again, one of our newly promoted teams. Okay, let's look at the rest. 11th, Insured with 32 points. ATP are there in 12th with 24. 2 points clear of Vision, who in turn are a point clear of Turbo. Then we have TFC and the KISS Racing Team. So, I don't think we've ever seen that before. Let's bring everybody back in Vision to just close out what's been an amazing week number 4. Back to you, Hannah. Who would have thought halfway through 4 teams sharing the same amount of points? I mean, that does set up the second half of this season in the women's to be something pretty special, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just? I mean, things can't get any more exciting for the next 4 rounds. It's going to be so close. It's all to play for those teams to try and really cement themselves at the top of the league or even onto the podium. But Heino, after that win tonight, moving themselves back into contention from around 5th or 6th overall coming into tonight, and to claw back those points and to now be leading on countback. Really, really exciting stuff coming our way.
I cannot wait for the next 4 rounds. Of course, we've got another team time trial to come as well. But last word from yourself, Dave. I think it's worth reflecting on the women's situation. We've talked about the men's league, but those 4 top teams are great to see. Of course, Team 2024 in the mix as well. It really has a different complexion to anything we've seen before over the last couple of seasons.
You couldn't ask for more. You really couldn't. And I have a feeling that now you're going to see us moving into the next level with our points races here, where strategy is going to be critical. You can't afford to miss a step now. And this is what the teams have been waiting for on the women's side of things, a chance to beat Heino. Well, here it is. Opportunity only comes along so often. This is your chance, ladies.
But I tell you what, though, just in response to that, though, Heino are going to be hungry because they are going to be in defence mode. That's going to be absolutely spectacular. But everybody, thanks indeed. Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Hannah, for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure as ever. We'll be back this time next week for week number 5 of the Zwift Racing League. We head to Richmond for the Cobbled Climbs course. It is one of the hardest courses. 3 climbs, 5 laps. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. Lots of points on offer. It's going to be all over the place, and certainly an opportunity for Heino to get back to where they usually are. Also, make sure you watch the Community Division races as well. They're already ongoing in partnership, of course, as ever, with the WTRL. And also, make sure you head to Zwift.com/Zwift Racing League to check out all of the previous races. If you've missed any of the action, head down there, right on cue. We've got the link. And, of course, don't miss World of Zwift. So lots of stuff out there for you to be entertained by. Please join us this time next week. But for now, I'm going to go for a lie down because that was just maybe a little bit too much. But thanks for watching. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. Most of all, ride on.